Smith with a good run. Look at Abram Smith. They were pinned at their own 5 after the Mac Brown punt, and he weaves his way past midfield.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
First down and 10 at the Ohio State 31. Again, they run it. Haskins sprinting. Out of bounds at the 5.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Looks like a busted play here. Williams in trouble, and he'll just throw it up and picked off.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Empty backfield. Pressure. Heineke is jacked. Down he goes. The ball is loose. It's picked up by Dallas and Armstrong. He's got a convoy. He's going to walk in for the touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go, starting the week, and also a new month, August the 1st. Good afternoon, 365 Sports and Sikkim 365 Radio on the day that TFNB Bank, TFNB, your bank for life, is our title sponsor of our YouTube channel, 365 Sports, and thanks to Jason Lavender and his executive team for that. And you will see their logo on many things that we do along the way, including in behind us. Jack McKenzie worked on the graphics over the weekend above the 365 Sports graphic. Today starts officially the Brett Yormark era in the Big 12. I think a lot of people would like to see like a pop early on, but it does appear as if that has kind of calmed itself down a little bit as, again, you wait for the Big 10. And then you wait for what the Pac-12 learns. And I just got off the phone with Jason Scheer, Arizona Authority, and he thinks really now that this slows down to a crawl with any kind of new news going forward, at least for now when it comes to realignment. But the Brett Yormark era began. We saw him at Big 12 Media Days. We interviewed him that day. Craig Smoak, you were a part of that. Let's start with you. What do you think one of the first things we will know as far as his impact, if it at all? Or is it going to be whatever they do when it comes to realignment?
Based on the article I was reading earlier, it'll be how he responds to George Kliavkoff talking crap, in The Athletic. That's would be my first response. If he even feels obligated to have to say anything back. At this point, he might just take the high road, unlike Kliavkoff, and actually just keep his mouth shut. But we'll see how he responds to that. But I don't know. I mean, he couldn't really say much at media days. They've had a couple of partnership announcements, the Old Trapper beef jerky and the announcement they made last week. I forget what that was already. What was the official watch partner or something, whatever it was. I think we're going to hear about little deals like that along the way that make more money for guys, but make more money for the conference. But outside of that, I don't know. I don't know what he's going to come out and say that outside of, hey, we're adding teams that's really going to spark anybody's interest. So I'm not sure where to go with that question.
No, I don't think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna go be bombastic. I mean, I get why George Kliavkoff, and I talked about this on Friday. You get why he has to kind of go out and be bombastic because they're treading water right now in the Pac-12, trying to figure out what they are. So I get his tact there, but trying to make it seem like everything's fine, it's not, because the more we hear about the TV contract. Look, the Big Ten could be done in a few weeks based on Kevin Warren. Okay, so that's something, and they would have to maybe worry about that if in those next few weeks the TV contract people say, well, Oregon and Washington will give you enough value to add them, and so nobody loses that much. But the Pac-12's contract could now drag into next year. That's really not good. They wanted to get this done so they could have something to turn to their teams and say, and now they really don't have anything.
All right, let me ask you this. He basically just kind of talked around the Big Ten and really didn't answer many questions about Kevin Warren. But he then threw what he talked about, how he's trying to avoid the grenades being thrown his way, mentioned Big 12 presidents and others have been texting some of his schools or whatever, and even brought up, I don't know if he ever used the word tampering. If the Big 12's being accused of tampering, what the hell did the Big 10 do? They didn't tamper. They just stole two of your teams.
Oh, this is what those big businesses do. That's why they never get their hands caught in the cookie jars because, we didn't reach out to them. They contacted us. Boom, done. All right, you want to prove it, then go out and prove it. But meanwhile, we're just going to sit here and, stick to that. Right?
Yep.
So, that's all you got to do. We see it every day in and day out. People never get caught for anything, or they're able to get around things on little technicalities. Oh, USC and UCLA, we didn't reach out to them. They reached out to us. So you can't be mad at us. So, that's probably one way to look at it. But, yeah, Brett Yormark, you start off asking what's he going to say. Again, I don't really know what he can say. There's nothing to talk about that's an explosive story that would really, catch people's attention right now. So, outside of responding to Kliavkoff, I can't think of anything that would even entail outside of announcing new teams. But again, that would in a roundabout way probably have to do with Kliavkoff. But yeah, Kliavkoff, let's get to what you're just saying there. For him to come out with the whole college football world watching on Friday and to get up there and have his little media days press conference, I'm sure he soothed the fears of a lot of Pac-12 fans out there. And look, I'm not one that's sitting here wishing for the Pac-12 to die. I'm not here begging for the Big 12 and the Pac-12 to morph into a conference. There's certain teams I really don't want to go visit, and there's certain teams I really don't want, to be in the same conference. So, it'll be interesting to see how all that ultimately works out, but I know there's a lot of fans over there that want to stay the Pac-12. And look, there's hope for that, and there's a lot of fans in the Big 12 that want to be some version, but they want to be the Big 12. And it looks like that's going to be the case. But, for Kliavkoff to sit up there in the midst of all this while the Big 12 is trying to stay alive and doing what they can do, and yeah, that probably does include reaching out to contacts at, Stanford and Oregon and Washington that are long shots and probably not safe bets to be in the Big 12 one day, as well as Arizona and Arizona State and teams that, very well may be looking at the writing on the wall and this TV contract that doesn't have a whole lot of momentum behind it and going, yeah, let's at least gauge their interest a little bit. You know why? Because they're looking to stay alive. And George Kliavkoff to sit up there and just walk right past Kevin Warren and walk right past, the actual architects of what's going on right now and then try to point the finger at Brett Yormark of the Big 12 is just laughable to me. It's like the fakest tough guy thing of all time. It's like you get punched by the bully in the face and then you turn around and you punch the little, the little hanger on as if you punched the bully. No, you didn't punch the bully. You punched down. But I don't even think he's punching down. I think he's
I think he's flailing.
He's flailing, yeah. And so, I was sitting there reading those comments on Friday, and obviously we weren't here. Paul, you were handling that. And at first I was like, okay, cool. Sounds like he's just being really level-headed. And then I started hearing the Big 12 stuff. I'm like, so you're going to attack them and just completely ignore the Big 10 side of this? Because
he's scared to death.
Yeah, because he probably wants a job in Kevin Warren's front office when that inevitably happens one day. So I thought that was just like, I didn't think that came out and really like was puff your chest out, Pac-12 strong, and we're going to make it and all that. And all the jazz that probably some Pac-12 fans took from him. I took that as just being really weak and kind of cowardly, is that you're going to sit there and punch at the one group that's in the same exact boat that you are. And yeah, they're coming and trying to grab some people off your boat, But, hey, you had the opportunity to do it last year, and just because you didn't do it doesn't mean you were right or wrong. It just means that's the road you took. Look, Brett Yormark and the Big 12 are going to take a different road because they want to survive. The reason you did not move last summer was because you didn't think you had to. You thought you were too good for the teams in the Big 12, and you had USC and you had UCLA and your cute little brands, and you were going to be fine. Didn't know the entire time that whole OU Texas was going to be pulled on you with your two LA brands. And so had the writing been on the wall back then the way it was for the Big 12, okay, the Big 12 knew when they lost Oklahoma and Texas, if we don't do something, we're dead. We're dead. Dead, right? Now here comes the Pac-12 in a similar situation, except for theirs is worse because their contract's right now. Like they have this upcoming year. The Big 12 still got a couple of years left. If the shoe had been on the other foot, would the Pac-12 have done the same thing last summer? Hell yeah, they would have. If the shoe had been on the other foot, would the Pac-12 have maybe done something differently? George Kliavkoff last summer got the heads up. USC and UCLA are going to be bolting under the darkness of night. Do you think that maybe you want to grab like a couple Big 12 teams right now? Do you think he probably would have done that? I bet he would have. To what extent he could have if he knew what was coming. If he knew that the LA schools were going to leave. And now I'm just assuming on that part. But however, you know, to sit there and act like the Big 12 is doing something wrong or they're tampering or whatever and not say anything about the Big 10, cowardly. Just I didn't want to listen to the rest of what you have to say because I think that's just cowardly on Kliavkoff's part.
All right, Paul, you were going to add something to that?
Yeah, I think it's – I mean, what Kliavkoff made the mistake of was falling into the kind of party line things of let me take a shot at the Big 12, you know, with this really clever line. You know, we're not shopping at that store yet, you know, so let me take this shot. But then also do the thing of like, well, I mean, UCLA, we don't know. I mean, the California University system all shares regents, and how they could do that, look,
they're gone.
They're gone.
Yeah.
They're leaving, and they'll win in court if you took them that far, and you're not going to, and Gavin Newsom's not going to do anything, so it's going to happen. So when you go through all that stuff, and just kind of go through the party line thing, leads me to believe that your plan is kind of in stasis because your TV negotiations have clearly stalled. And unless something happens in the next 3 days, because I guess August 4th was the day.
Right.
But the TV negotiations have stalled because your product is incomplete at this point, and you have to do something. But you also knew last year that, you know, when you didn't want any of the Big 12 and the Big 12 went and got what they did and you felt good about yourself, that you weren't interested in brands like that. So, you know, if they didn't want the Big 12 last year, which are better brands going ahead than the ones that they brought in, because if the ones that they brought in were better, they would have already been there. I'm not knocking them, but that's just the case. So now you have to do the same thing the Big 12 did or try to convince everybody else you're good at 10. Which is something the Big 12 did 10 years ago, and we see how that worked out for them. Eventually, it had an expiration date, too.
A couple of notes in the chat room. Jermaine Bell, don't overanalyze it. It's clear as day the Pac-12 is a weak commissioner. Just wish the universities the best of luck and Chip will fall as they may. And then Monty Pritchett, David, if the Big 12's lobbying grenades, then Warren must have dropped a couple of bombs. And that's true, too.
I mean, did y'all read the Athletic, the latest quotes from Kliavkoff? Yeah. So here he goes, and like says nothing about, I mean, for the most part, like Kevin Warren and the Big Ten, like says absolutely nothing about those parts of this story. But UCLA, he does make the comments about, you know, it's clear UCLA and USC made a decision for short-term financial gain at the expense of their student athletes. It's 100% clear to me. It's really unfortunate. I think they're already regretting it. I don't believe that for 1 second that they're already regretting it, by the way. I don't believe that for one single second. Given the pushback they've gotten from almost every corner of their communities, I think they will regret it more as time goes on. And that's all he really says in terms of you know, those schools and you know, that kind of jazz. But then he starts getting into, I mean, he gets more into, like, it seems the UCLA story. He's going to try and give that as much legs as possible as far as, like, whatever legislation they could possibly do. But, you know, again, I don't think many people are buying into that. But, you know, then comes the whole not holding back his feelings for the Big 12 part. I've been trying to focus on stuff that moves the conference forward, and I've been trying to spend as little time as possible responding to the fake news and nonsense that has come out of other conferences in an effort to destabilize us. He said he talked to Yormark. I told him I believe college athletics is healthier than when we have a healthy and vibrant Big 12 and a healthy and vibrant Pac-12. Having those votes in the CFP room is valuable, and apparently they talked about that. I keep reminding Yormark of that, and it's a repeating pattern. It'd be in the best interest of college athletics if both conferences are strong. I know for a fact we're going to be strong, and I think if he does the right things, they'll be fine. So, that was him spending a lot more time on Brett Yormark than he spent on Kevin Warren. So that says a lot to me there.
I agree. Gully, you can't have your commissioner come out and say he's going to poach your teams and have the Big 12 schools talking to your teams and then get mad when someone fires back. What we were saying, well, some of us are saying that, but what we're also saying is he wants to fight back with the guy that's like looking at him eye to eye or whoever's a little bit higher. But the team that bombed his conference, he's going to dodge that and shy away from that because he's petrified of what the Big Ten might do next. That's what we're also saying as well.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's just kind of funny that you're going to pick on the dude who just got on the job starting when? Today, officially, and was really on it like a month ago. This ain't like me being Mr. Big 12 versus Pac-12. I just think his comments are kind of laughable. That's all. Like, I understand he's got to come out swinging or whatever, but it would mean a lot more if he actually said something about the Big Ten. Like, who's he fighting with? He's fighting with the team that's in the same situation that he's in, not with the ones that are actually pulling the main strings, and that's where I just find it kind of comical. I understand he's got to say what he's got to say, but now this is turning into Pac-12 versus Big 12, and it's a fight for survival, so I get why. But, him trying to paint the Big 12 as the bad guy when the whole reason he's talking about this is because the Big 10 is the one that took his teams. It's just silly to me. But I understand he's got to say what he's got to say to appease his fans. So.
We have mentioned this timeline before, and Paul, you mentioned 3 days from now, August the 4th, that the Pac-12 by then should know for sure, kind of like what that open period, that negotiating window. Number two, the Big Ten, they'll get to their Big Ten announcement of whatever it's going to be whenever the hell they want to, and that's expected maybe right before the start of the season. Those two things have to fall into place. And really, I just talked to Jason Shear again from Arizona Wildcat Authority, and until then, which is kind of what we thought, and most everybody should have thought this way, there's not much that can happen. We want instant gratification. Now, there could still be something that occurs between now and then. And you just let the timeline. The first one's August 4th, whatever that might mean. And the next one's when the Big Ten announces their whatever it will be, which, again, has been estimated at $100 million apiece. I don't know if it'll get that high, but even if it's $75 million apiece, it's still a monstrous deal.
I think that the Big Ten TV deal will have shockwaves probably throughout everything. I mean, look, the Big 12 is kind of in an advantageous position because you can take what they're getting, value out your teams, and then try to get more on your next one, which everybody we've talked to feels like they should at least get a bump from what they were getting. Now, they wouldn't get it as if Texas and Oklahoma were in the league, and that's something they're going to have to swallow. But, again, they can sit and wait and maybe see what happens with the Pac-12, and that will go into that TV deal as well. But the ACC, I'm sure, is sitting there watching. There are probably a bunch of teams in the ACC sitting there watching going, all right, how much money is Rutgers going to make right now? I'm Clemson.
Yeah.
How much money is Rutgers going to make?
Let's say it's 75 to 100 million, which is a huge gate, but we don't get huge.
We'll call it on the low end.
We don't know.
75
million, 80, whatever it is, and they're making 35 or 40.
Yeah. I think that's going to kick off something as well.
Here's a super chat. We've had a couple of them. Kendrick Melville. Kendrick, thank you. Why does the Big 12 want Arizona? They're 57-74 since 11. 5-24 since 2019. Wouldn't the Big 12 prefer a proven winner than just a market? Their own conference wants Arizona, the Pac-12. We've said this before. Yes, you would love to have the name brands. What's UCLA's record lately? What's USC's record lately? It doesn't matter. They're the LA market. They're also branded logos. Now, Arizona may not have that, but it's still about markets and potential and growth, and the possibility of more money for your TV deal as well. Thank you, Kendrick.
Yeah, Kendrick, I don't think it's just about, what have you done for me lately as far as wins. I do wonder how much that does maybe hinder some other programs who are trying to move up or, cement their status or whatever the case may be. But, yeah, on paper, if you're just going for football wins, then Arizona's not ideal. And, I don't even know. I know what Jason Shear said, and I know what others have said, but we don't know, the level of interest the Big 12 has and, where Arizona comes in on that level of interest. But of the teams that are, I think if you said, hey, Big 12, you can poach 2 Pac-12 teams, who's to say Arizona would be number 1 or number 2 on that? But, hey, Big 12, you can potentially poach these teams and who's realistic. Well, they might be number 1 or number 2 on that list because Oregon and Washington aren't that realistic, or 2 others might not be all that realistic. So, it might just be they're the most realistic of the bunch and the best of the bunch, regardless of, football record lately.
If it was about recent football wins, then UCLA wouldn't have been.
Then why would Texas be invited to the SEC?
Yeah, exactly.
I know why. We know why, but it's just a point, yeah.
But UCLA is not now, nor have they ever been really a football brand long term. They've had their glory days, I know, but this was not a team in UCLA that has ever football-wise outshined their traveling partner now to the Big Ten in USC for all that long.
No, not even close.
So they're about UCLA is just about that market. I know, but if it was about recent football wins at all, a lot of the Pac-12 wouldn't even be considered in the slightest. Utah's been the best team lately. Oregon probably after that. Washington after that of the remaining ones, and everybody else recently. Cal, Stanford, not what you'd call powers, and they kind of have a different thing going. Washington State, Oregon State. I mean, they're all kind of Colorado, all kind of fall into the same hodgepodge. So yeah, it's not about wins at all.
All right, when we come back, Dick Harmon, he writes for the Deseret News, and he wrote a column about the Pac-12 and wrote a column about what Kliavkoff said Friday and wrote a column about what he thought Kliavkoff should have said. And we're going to have him next. Also today, Max Olson joins us at 4. And in the state of Texas today, the beginning of high school football workouts. Today, early this morning, then some starting later on this afternoon and evening. And we're going to hear from Shane Anderson of Midway High School, one of the largest school in the Waco area, as they began practices a week ahead of when they normally would. We'll get into that with Shane Anderson. And then also today, we will get into what happened with the decision involving Deshaun Watson, the NFL, and the Cleveland Browns, and what does that mean. David Hellman from Cowboys camp, Sam Bradshaw on his story on Friday about what he thought was, here's the truth when it comes to TV numbers, etc., and Paul's Top 5, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
TFNB, your bank for life, community efforts and impact. Clarity, a charity champions program helping those who help others, and the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. We're now joined by Dick Harmon, the Deseret News columnist who wrote a story over the weekend with the Pac-12 having their Media Day Friday, and also with George Kliavkoff and what he had to say. And Dick joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Dick, I love the way you set up your column. And it was kind of like, this is what he could have said, but he didn't. And did you kind of just check that off as you listened to him throughout the morning on Friday?
Yeah, I did, Dave. I thought that there were certain things that we just were not going to get the answers to by the nature of how quick this whole thing has happened. And I thought, well, what would have been different if they were able to answer some of these questions and give the media and the coaches and the athletic directors and the whole public a little bit better sign of where they're at? And he couldn't really deliver on any of them. And I think that speaks probably volumes about where that league is right now.
Dick, what were you most surprised about, that he took shots at the Big 12 or that he didn't take shots at the Big 10?
I think that he didn't take shots at the Big 10. He seemed to play that with kid gloves. He kind of avoided any kind of a confrontation, almost like he was afraid of him. I know these guys know each other. I know George K. doesn't have the deep relationships that a lot of other people like Bob Bowlesley. I mean, have been in this for years, and so he's got to be careful of the relationships that he has. But why take a shot at Yormark? Why take the gloves off with him and do that? Well, what it did is it confirmed to us that there has been contact between entities in the Big 12 and in the Pac-12. They've been talking. There's been contact. He's had reports back. So he confirmed that, and I think he's ticked off about it.
Dick, elsewhere, in talking about the conference, I think everybody Pac-12-wise was waiting for, hey, everybody's come together, and no matter what happens, we're going to stick together, or just some togetherness. Did you get any sense of that? It didn't appear that you did.
I think that there was a concerted effort to do that. I know that when talks first came out, that there was going to be maybe some movement towards the Big 12, maybe some poaching going on with the Pac-12 schools, the remaining 10. I know that immediately there was some reaction from the University of Utah from someone underneath or close to the athletic department that contacted our newspaper and some other outlets to try to shoot that right down. So there has been a concerted effort for them to put up a face of stability, unity, and to go forward and to have that be the headlines that they want presented. But is it forced? And is there some talks going on behind the scenes that maybe we don't know about? We keep hearing, things out of Tucson that's the case. We've heard a little bit out of Denver. But that's the face that they want to put on. And it hold up. It's held up pretty good so far.
What does Brigham Young want to see happen?
I think BYU fans want to see Arizona State, and Colorado come in. Their first preference would probably be Washington and Oregon. I think Cal and Stanford would be down the line simply because of their fan bases, especially at Stanford. They're really struggling to get people in the seats. It's pitiful about what they do. But Stanford is a rival of BYU. in terms of recruits. They just lost a couple of Mormon kids to Stanford in commitments, but I think that they would actively encourage Arizona State, Colorado to come on over. They don't want Utah in the Big 12. I'm talking about the fans, not the administration, but the fans, and the rivalry there is so deep and so painful. They would say, keep Utah out.
We posted the question to our listeners, and we have quite a few that are fans of either school. And it was, if it was a presidential election, we wouldn't wake up the next morning and know what would happen. It was
the electoral college would be a mess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting thing, but the Big 12 would be better with Utah in it, but they already got the market with BYU. The big market here in Utah is the Utah Jazz and BYU, and then the University of Utah is down the line. That's what the media counts and our story counts say as far as what we do. But the University of Utah, take nothing away. Their football program with Kyle Whittingham is first class at the top 10 program. They went to the Rose Bowl. They've beaten Alabama. He's got it rolling. I don't know how long he'll be there, but if you ask me if Utah would be a good mix in the Big 12, I say absolutely.
Dick, it's when George Kliavkoff is talking about the Big 12 coming and poaching, I understand the reasons behind doing all that. I understand, the togetherness and all that. And I understand why he's not taking shots at Kevin Warren, but isn't there a big just bubble of uncertainty surrounding schools at the Big 12? I mean, we'd probably love to have, but doesn't have a much of a chance. Oregon, Washington, Cal, Stanford. I mean, isn't there quite a bit of a feeling that, you can't really sign a long-term rights, not just because of who might be looking at the Big 12, but who the Big 10 might want in the future? And how much of a problem does that cause in terms of trying to keep this thing stabilized?
Well, there are so many problems with that league right now. If some of the preliminary indications of what their money package is going to be, anywhere from $21 million per team to maybe 30, 35, 40 at the very most, and that's in a dream world. The fact that they might be giving disproportionate amounts to some schools, maybe Oregon and Washington, as to others. I mean, to get them to stay, and then, like you mentioned, to have how long can you sign your media grant your media rights?
Right?
Would it be for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years? I don't know that Oregon or Cal or Stanford or Washington would sign anything that would be on 3 years. They'd be fools not to. And if you do that, then how stable is your program? It's not stable. Your conference is not stable.
Which is why I go back to his comments about Yormark. I understand that the conference could completely shutter if, let's say 4 teams were to up and leave and go to the Big 12. But, if you're mad at the Big 12 for talking to these teams, but meanwhile, the team that already destabilized, or the conference that already destabilized you by taking your LA market, is the one that also has this hanging over your head of, if they want to, they can swoop in and grab a couple of others and really destabilize you, which makes his comments about Yormark and not Warren even that much more puzzling to me.
No, absolutely. But here's the thing that's even more puzzling is that there are I think we're talking mainly about fans and media. In the Pac-12, they really, really believe they can pick up the phone and get Baylor, Oklahoma State, TCU to join them any day that they want. There's that kind of an attitude that they have where I kind of think that the disruptive sisters of the Pac-12 don't trust each other. And if there's any stability at all that Yorkland is walking into it, I think that the remaining teams outside of Texas and Oklahoma, the remaining teams and the newcomers, there's an element of trust there. You guys would have a better feel for that than I do, but I think that the people are really genuinely excited about this move and about the new conference, and they want to make it work and they want to keep it together. And now I could be reading that wrong, but there are two opposite universes in the Midlands and the Pac-12.
There's a chat comment. By the way, I had a chat comment from someone that says they listen to you up in Utah and they love your show. So, Dick, that's from somebody in the chat room. I wish I could remember the name. In fact, I did copy and paste it. The DA, who's part of the chat room. You mentioned that about Utah. Do they? And I know the bitter rivalry and all that, and there's a lot of those around the country. Like TCU and Baylor is because they're two private schools, but also because TCU was left out when the Big 12 was formed. Is that the same way Brigham Young feels about Utah because they were accepted to the Pac-12 and BYU didn't get the invite?
Yeah, absolutely. There's and then University of Utah, the community in Salt Lake City went and put Pac-12 banners up on almost every light post in town in Salt Lake City. They put billboards up on the freeway. They kind of rubbed it in their faces. But the thing that's also elementally at the center of this culturally is that there's two big differences in these universities. One is a religious institution and one is a state. And there are some elements in the state institution that really, really resent the religious aspects of BYU. And it kind of gets deep into people's personal beliefs and things like that. And it's been this way for 50, 60, maybe 70 years. You're not going to get rid of that. And so when you go to the Pac-12 and they say, well, it's a cultural fit, and they take Utah, then it's a slap in the face at a school that has a bigger stadium, a bigger following, and a lot of other elements, including a national championship in its resume. Multiple All-America, Davey O'Brien, Heisman Trophy, Outland. All this tradition of BYU, you spit in the face of that because it's not a cultural fit. So there's a big resentment among BYU fans, the Pac-12, and particularly about University of Utah going there.
Dick, BYU already has built something under Kalani Sitake where they can take on all comers right now and not walk into any game where you think that they're going to get walloped or beat, and they're going to be in every single game. Now that they will be actually in a year able to play for conference titles and potentially the CFP, how have you seen the buzz around their football program for recruits? I mean, you mentioned the kids that are going to Stanford, but overall solidifying their base and growing it out now that you can do those things at BYU in 2023.
Yeah, it's been helpful in a couple of things. Number one, they've been able to build more depth, getting some talent in, which will help when they go to the Big 12. Number two, I think the recruiting, it's opened doors for them. They've talked to people. They've had people call them from Florida and Texas and deep recruiting country of Houston. They've had people call them on the phone that would not have called them before, or return their calls when they would not have done it before. And it's made a huge difference with they just got a transfer from Oregon, a girl, a basketball player, and she's playing for her mother that BYU just hired. But this girl is one of the top 15 basketball players in the country, and she came because of the Big 12.
Again, Dick Harmon, Deseret News columnist, and obviously some of you that do get to listen to him in the chat like what he does in the writing as well. So it seems like, obviously, there's whatever the open window or whatever the negotiating window for the Pac-12 when it comes to TV, which is ending on Thursday of this week. There's the Big Ten, whenever they decide, because they can on their own dime, what they're going to do and release their television rights. Until then, you think anything's going to happen?
I don't think so, unless in the Pac-12 a couple of people get giddy and shaky and say, and anxious and say, you know what? This didn't turn around, and let's just go and do it. Let's just jump. I don't know that will happen, but if that does, it'll be because of that, is because the numbers come in low and they said, okay, let's just take off now.
Hey, again, Dick, thanks for your time. We appreciate you. We'll try to get you on again down the road. We appreciate your time.
Thanks. Love your stuff. I listen to it all the time. You guys do the best job in the country. Thank you.
Oh, man.
Thank you.
Dick, thank you very much. I did not know you were going to say that, but thank you. Did we record that? From Dick Harmon, again, Deseret News.
Here's one. Emory, make sure that makes the YouTube release.
Here's an example of what he wrote. An announcement that the remaining 10 Pac-12 teams had each agreed to a grant of rights for the next 5, 7, or even 10 years. He could not, talking about the commissioner. An announcement of an official first offer money number for each school was pitched by ESPN during negotiations concluding August the 4th during the 30-day evaluation period. He could not. And that's kind of how he set up the column. That doesn't mean you have to agree with him, but it was very interesting the way he put it together.
Yeah. Pitching that first number out, I bet you, was a very strategic decision because I don't think he wants it out there.
That may be true. That may be true.
Yeah, I mean, he went over like 6 different things that would have been far more interesting than just yelling at the Big 12 that would have actually meant something, and they did not address those at Pac-12 Media Days. I thought it was a bit of a, nothing burger in that regard, and, maybe you could say that about, other press conferences that have happened. That's fine, but I just know that when I left on Thursday, I was very much looking forward to hearing what he had to say. And I understand why he came out swinging, but like I just asked Dick there, and, it's like the person said, don't read too much into it. And I totally agree. Like, I understand, again, that George Kliavkoff's got to do what he's got to do. But if you don't agree with the first round of things, how about this? How about the fact that they know that if they lose anybody else, they're pretty much toast?
Yeah.
And I understand that. But what does he know, I guess, about the Big Ten that he's more worried about the Big 12 poaching schools than he's worried about the Big Ten coming in and really ending them for good. Because Oregon and Washington are the big wild cards here, right? They're the big ones, Cal, Stanford, whoever else you want to throw into that mix that apparently could have a chance to go to the Big Ten. If the Big Ten wants them, basically. If the Big Ten calls, they will all go right now.
Sure.
And there's not even a question. And yes, same thing goes for the Big 12, but it doesn't appear as though the Big Ten's targeting those schools. Although I said last week, like, if I'm somebody in the Big 12, I'm not trusting anybody. I'm getting along as best we can. But yeah, I'm side-eyeing Houston and TCU at every moment's notice. Just like, you sure you're not talking to them? You sure you're not talking to them? Like, I'm making sure about that. So I don't think the Big 12 is just like ready to take their fencing down and can feel like nothing's going to happen. I'm the complete opposite on that. But it is a little bit safer and sturdier fencing than what the Pac-12 seems to have right now. So if all that's preventing your conference's demise is the conference that already started this whole ball rolling, coming in whenever they want to, today, tomorrow, or 2 years from now, and saying, hey, we want 2 to 4 of these schools, and they're like, yeah, come on, then again, tell me why he's not directing his anger in that direction. Because they're the ones that started it, like I said, and are still the threat. Like, as much as Brett Yormark or the Big 12 or whoever may be calling Arizona or Arizona State or Utah or Colorado or whoever you want to throw into that mix, and I'm sure they've called Washington and Oregon as well to gauge their interest, but the Big Ten's the one that's, like, the schools aren't going to not sign grant of rights necessarily because of the Big 12. Oregon and Washington are signing them because of the Big Ten. That's why. It's because of the Big Ten. So, again, you know, when you're laying out your list of issues, it starts with that conference. They've already taken from you, and they're the threat that is preventing the ones that are still keeping you together, you know, from signing anything long term. So,
well, yeah, and to not push back at the Big Ten. Look, Bob Bowlesby pushed back, and it was, look, some of these things are similar, and we talked to Max about that. He wrote about it the other day. That some of these things are almost exactly the same as what happened a year ago, where, you know, 2 teams get stolen, the commissioner of the league, you know, barks back, and it's similar. But one of the things about barking back at the SEC was Bob Bowlesby also knew that Texas and Oklahoma were gone. They weren't coming for Oklahoma State or anybody else, because if they were, they would have done it already. They would have just added that on to the
Wouldn't
top.
that have been the same case about the Big Ten with the Pac-12?
I think so, but I do think now. But Greg Sankey never said, like, oh, we're stuck with it. I mean, he said it. Kevin Warren came out a couple of days ago and was like, oh, I mean, you know, nothing's ever written in stone. You know, like, yeah. I mean,
Kleofkoff's talking about all the noise and rumors and whatever.
That's from fans.
That's from fans. That's from media talking about it as well. And that's from just, hey, 2 + 2 = 4. But guess what? Again, that did not start with the Big 12 and Arizona or the Big 12 and Colorado. What was the rumors that immediately followed USC and UCLA? Who else is the Big Ten taking from the Pac-12? Is it Oregon? Is it Washington? Is it Stanford? Is it Cal? That was Chapter 2. And then that kind of fizzled out. And then it was the Big 12 taking up not even those schools, but like the other group of schools potentially. So, yeah, I mean, that's just where I'm kind of like, spare me, dude. I mean, I understand it's politics and you got a business, you know, play all these different things, but that's why I just felt like his comments on Friday, yes, they had to be said, but they were so empty because go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, you just cut it off. So it doesn't matter. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish what you were saying, that his thoughts were just empty.
That's basically it.
Okay.
I mean,
all right. Well, the reason I said, I was going to mention Max Olson wrote a column about it in The Athletic, and he's going to join us at 4 o'clock, and he can get his perspective on it as well. Sorry about that. Vanity Rose, if he fired cannons on the Big Ten, then the narrative would be, get over it. He's squaring up with the Big 12 because that's who's trying to eat them. The Big Ten's already taken legs and arms and body parts. So fire the candidate who has taken part of who you are and the guts of who you are away from you, not so much a team that may nibble afterwards.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's true. I understand he's got to fight with who he can actually fight with. But, again, the big thing after the L.A. schools left was not, oh, my gosh, the Pac-12's in trouble because the Big 12's going to come get Arizona. No, it was, oh, my gosh, is the Big Ten also going to take Oregon and Washington and Cal and Stanford And guess what? Those rumors are still out there. And guess what? If the Big Ten called today, those schools would up and leave. Let's call it what it is. He has no chance in any fight whatsoever with the Big Ten, so why even get into that fight? He knows it's a fight he'll lose no matter what, and maybe he can win a fight with the Big 12. So there you go. That's really what it is, and we just solved it.
And look, Yormark wasn't as pointed as Kevin Warren. He said, look, we're open for business, and the attitude of a conference who almost died a year ago has to be that you're always open for business.
No, yeah.
I mean, that's the point, but I think Kevin Warren said that same thing right after saying, like, we are, not only open for business, we're whale hunting.
Yeah, no. By the way, we did get a note. Jeff Grimm, who's been a part of us, I think, pretty much since day one when it comes to what we did with the chat room and much more. Good friend of ours, great friend of the show, Joey Foster, is having some back issues and is in the hospital. So we're thinking about Joey. I traded a couple of text messages with him on Friday and Saturday. He's a good dude who loves college football. When we come back, today started high school football practices for about, I'd say, 75% or so of the state of Texas. We'll hear from one of the coaches of a school that normally would not start this week, but next in Shane Anderson of Midway. One college note, Colton Bosick from Westlake High School, an outside edge rusher in Austin, has made his commitment to Brent Venables in Oklahoma. He just did that within the last hour. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. I went by there on Saturday morning after I had a chance to go play a round of golf, so I would have a fresh bone-in ribeye. I have some in my freezer, but I wanted to go by and get one that's a little bit thicker. I called up and said, hey, I'll be there in 10 to 20 minutes, or I can wait a little bit if you're not quite ready to be able to do that. And they custom cut it for me, went by the store, picked up a couple of other things along the way. There's some seasonings, they have sauces, they have some the intangibles of what you need, the necessities of what you need sometimes from a hometown grocery store. Full-fledged butcher shop and bakery, fresh baked bread every day. They will custom cut whatever beef or steak you want, along with pork, poultry, and seafood. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Did you know the average American pays over $500 a month for their car payment? What would you do if you didn't have to make that payment for 90 days? Where else could you use $1,500? Keep your car payments at Genco. Buy new or refinance your current vehicle and have no payments for 90 days. Take advantage of our low rates and no payments for 90 days. Only at Genco. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies insured by NCUA.
My money, my future, my credit union, Genco.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon wrap filet. And of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube.
Max Olson, national writer, theathletic.com, will join us. College football and much more. He's got some statistics about the transfer portal and the percentages that move up or down or stay the same. He'll join us today at 4. Shane Anderson, head football coach at Midway High School in his second year, was there as an assistant coach when they played for a state championship. He joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Normally, schools your size don't start until a week from today, Shane, and you decided that you would not have spring drills. Now that you look back, did you make the right decision?
Absolutely. Best decision that we made all year. No, it was there's a lot of things that go into it. I think anytime you have a significant amount of guys that are playing baseball, I think, guys that are running track, I think, it helps them not to have to put the pads on. And then, with the way the UIL is structured, the summer workouts, I think, you get enough ball in the summer where I think it helps you with retention from the spring through the summer and into the fall. And then, I really like having this extra week in the fall.
Yeah. How much does it also help, you talk about retention mentally, but for the guys to not have to do that pick and choose thing, sometimes you can get kind of pushed to your limit as a kid, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been an advocate, and every year I fill out Smokey's deal. I'll continue to put it on there. Specialization is one of my pet peeves. And as an athletic director, and head football coach, at Conley for 6 years, and then as the campus coordinator and head football coach here at Midway, we're always going to encourage our kids to play everything and compete year-round. I would rather give up a kid in off-season in the weight room if he's out on the baseball field or on the basketball court competing against competition at a high level and getting after it. And, I think it's good for all kids. I think it's good for the kids that are maybe your starting quarterback to serve in a different role. Maybe be that first guy off the bench, or be a backup in basketball, or be a backup in baseball, and learn how to play different roles. And so I just think playing everything and competing year round is just invaluable for kids nowadays, especially.
Shane, I know last season was tough, obviously, but just what was the kind of the self-reflection like in the offseason? I know you probably had some things already top of mind that you wanted to change or twist around or do differently, but what was that period like right afterwards? You're like, all right, time to get back to work.
Well, I think it's human nature to be embarrassed and not be satisfied with being a 1-9 football team. And, obviously the last 2 years, for whatever reason, you can say the district, you can say, lack of whatever you want to blame it on. But at the end of the day, you've got to roll your sleeves up. You got to go to work, and you got to be ready to go. And so our kids have done an unbelievable job. Our coaching staff's done an unbelievable job. Well, we've made some more additions to our staff. We've got, I think, we had a great off season hiring coaches. We had a great off season with kids buying into the weight room, and we killed it. And, that carried over into the summer. These kids are hungry. These kids are excited about getting that bad taste out of their mouth, getting Midway football back to what it used to be.
One thing you did do, and you had mentioned this to me at the end of last year, and you have people who are really good at what they do when it comes to strength and conditioning and cardio and all the things and flexibility. But you gave me a number, I think, at the end of maybe, was it March or April, of how many players or athletes in your system that could do like the combined 1,000 pounds when it comes to bench and all that. How many did you have at the end of last season or the start of off season, and how many do you have right now?
Well, Coach Ryan Tedford, our strength conditioning coach, has done an unbelievable job taking my vision for the weight room and kind of how we want to run things from a structural standpoint and putting it into place. And so we started in January with 17 kids over 1,000 pounds. And when I say 1,000 pounds, we're totaling the squat, the bench, power clean, and incline. And we've done that everywhere I've been. We call it the Big Four. It's old school. It's probably the same workout some of you guys did when you were in school. And, I just think there's some merit to that old school way of thinking. I think you can back squat 3 times a week. I think there's something to a kid putting weight on the bar and moving it and competing against that bar. And so we started with 17 kids over 1,000 pounds, which in 6A football ain't going to win you a whole lot of games. At spring break, we retested. We were at 31, and in May, we were over 50. So we went from 17 to over 50 kids over 1,000 pounds. And when you have 50 kids over 1,000 pounds in the weight room, it's going to give you a chance to win some football games.
What was the mood like inside the athletic department when you got the new district?
I think everybody was excited. Obviously, you don't have to line up against DeSoto, Cedar Hill, and Duncanville, to name a few. But, you got Waxahachie. And guys, I think, yes, those programs are all very, very good. And are we on that level? Probably not yet. Was there a time where Midway could line up against those guys and if not beat them, go toe-to-toe? Absolutely. And that's where we're trying to get back to. I think you have to look at the numbers. We have 2,500 kids in our high school, and you line up against a Duncanville or even a Waxahachie with almost 5,000 or over 5,000 kids. Well, that's a comparison to Academy or Lorena or McGregor playing us. And so, they have twice as many kids, to choose from. And so, I think in this new district that we're in, we have 25, and I think that the smallest one is Harker Heights with right at 23. So there's not even 200 kids difference between top to bottom, all 7 teams in our district, and that's how it's intended to be. That's how the UIL, originated the plan and how it's supposed to be structured. And unfortunately, in 6A, there's so many schools turning to 6A, opening up new schools. For example, in Killeen and Belton, they'll go down to 5A for a minute, and then they jump back up. And really, they're playing 5A ball, some of them with 6A numbers. And so, it's a real chore, for everybody involved. But I think you got to look at the numbers, and obviously you got to give credit where credit's due. Temple and Harker Heights have unbelievable football teams coming in this year, and they're not going to be, any easy out by no means. And, Brian has a new head coach. Hutto has a new head coach. Copper Cove has a new head coach. This is our second year here. Pflugerville Weiss has been tremendously successful at the 5A Division I level. They're coming up. So it's going to be a tough out every Friday night, but the numbers make more sense.
Hey, I got a question for you to wrap it up, Shane. Can't wait to see you again, and it's always great to talk to you. When you have a school that has won before, even though the drought has been a really tough 2 years, does it make it easier to get back to where that mentality was or not?
I don't know if it's easier. I think the name of the game is having some success early. I'm not saying we got to win all of our non-district games or we have to do this or that. I just think you have to have some success. You can't go down to Round Rock and get blown out, 70-something to 7 or whatever it was. And I think, lining up against Mansfield week 1, we got to be prepared. And whatever happens that night, as long as we play good football and we're in the game and we give ourselves a chance, I think you have something to build on. Now, if you go out there and you get your teeth kicked in like we did game 1 last year, then the doubt sets in and you got to really, really sell it. And then we lost a couple close ones. And then you start questioning, can we even win? And so I think to answer the question the best, I just think we got to find a way to have some success. And I can assure you we've done everything we can from January until now. We're going to continue to do everything we can as a coaching staff and as a locker room and as a football team to give ourselves a chance to be in the game come August 26th versus Mansfield.
All right, and we'll be there, of course, with the game broadcast, Midway Football on Sikkim 365 Radio and 106.7 FM, The Eagle. Thank you, Shane. Appreciate your time. We'll see you sometime this week.
I appreciate you guys, man. It's always an exciting time of year, and I look for that call. I probably would have got my feelings hurt if you wouldn't have called me and asked me to get on today, being the first day of football. But I appreciate you guys. Y'all have a great week, great day, and we'll see y'all soon.
Full throttle, Shane Anderson, head coach at Midway High School. We appreciate that. And again, we'll have their games in Connolly football in various ways.
When he was talking about weightlifting, he was talking about
He said old school.
It was your day.
He was old school.
Yeah,
oh,
it was your day.
I mean, look at this. There's old school.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, Max Olson, one of the elite college football writers around the country. And by the way, another super chat we just got for $20 from a Houston fan. We'll obviously want to read that. Thank you so much. We have to break. You got something you want to add to that?
No, I guess we can wait on that. I was just thinking about the Pac-12, and there was an article I was reading about, them being on the lookout for expansion, being open to expansion, which is funny given all the stuff we were talking about earlier about destabilizing and this and that. And one of the schools, if Houston was out there before, I think they would be a really good candidate for the Pac-12. And I wouldn't be surprised, when I talk about looking around the room, like if, George Kliavkoff doesn't at least give them a ring and just say, hey, what's going on? What's the situation? Or SMU's been rumored there as well. But, that's what it had me thinking about.
Man, so much to get to. A couple of super chats for $10 and $20. We appreciate you doing that. We appreciate you giving us time. Max Olson, theathletic.com, is next. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, used to be, and you need to be. How does he do that? Well, you have to contact him. Tell him I sent you. Go to PettyClinicLowT.com. Email, phone number in the top left-hand corner. Tell them I sent you. 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. Sex drive, body fat. It could be sleep habits. It could be your focus and your energy. Some of that could be tied in, or all of it, to whatever you have when it comes to your testosterone level that, as you get older, it drops. 1 out of every 3 men, that occurs. So he will help set you up with an appointment to get your blood drawn. He will get the results and then look at your testosterone levels, along with a few other things that are important as well. And if your levels are too low, he can put you in a program so you can become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be at PettyClinicLowT.com.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Make this a summer sales event is happening now at Allen Samuels on the new 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Star. With special values up to $7,000 or get $1,500 bonus cash and 2.9% for 72 months. Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. This legendary, award-winning truck gives you that first-class feel. Allen Samuels in Waco, the place to shop for Ram trucks. First responders get $500 extra cash.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Three tight ends on the field again. It's a run on the delay. Thomas, the touchdown. And Utah strikes first.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Max Olson of The Athletic. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus. And best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects. With 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Emery, Levi, Jack, and Garrett behind the scenes with all of what we do, from blowing things out onto social media to putting things up on the site to producing, directing as well. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak, and senior national writer Max Olson, theathletic.com, joins us on 365 Sports. I saw your note earlier today about the transfer cycle, and I don't know if anyone follows this better than you do. So what did you learn from all the stats and data, Max?
Appreciate y'all having me on, as always. So I've been keeping a spreadsheet all summer long of every single player that went in the portal in the past year. And then, yesterday was the end of that portal cycle. That's how the NCAA kind of marks it. August 1 is the start of a new one. So, then I had a spreadsheet of 2,000 names, and I had to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to learn from all of it. And we put that piece together today for The Athletic. And hopefully it sheds some light for folks who maybe they have some preconceived notions about, sort of the dangers of going in the portal, or how it goes for people, or how good or bad this is for the sport. Try to kind of just dive into what are the outcomes for players who've gone in the portal over the past year. And, really the big thing we found is, first of all, more than 80% of the FBS scholarship players who've gone in the portal have found homes, which is good to hear. I know that might not sound like a great number to some, but ultimately, a few months ago, NCAA put out a number suggesting that number was 54%, which I knew was inaccurate at the time, and glad we were able to kind of get that figured out. I think that number will keep going up. So 80% finding home. Now, ultimately, about 49% of players who go in the portal end up transferring down, whether that's down to G5, FCS, D2, whatever. That's just kind of how it goes for a lot of players. You have to kind of know where you're at, and hopefully you have good tape and some good connections in terms of testing your luck with that. But, if you're a Power 5 player, 88% of them have found a home so far, with more to come. And really just kind of try to dive into this, position by position, conference by conference, and all that.
Max, I would say that the best part about the portal is that it allows you to find the level that you should be. Now, that's not always the case 100% of the time, but there are cases. I mean, look at Cameron Ward, who's at Washington State now, Jared Verse, who's at FSU, guys who could play, who needed just some tape at playing college football, who could play up, and are, and then there's guys who probably need to be at a different spot and they go down. So while it doesn't swing equally both ways, it's still pretty good.
Yeah, and of the more than 2,000 players that have hit the portal at the FBS level who had scholarships in the last year, I'm sure a lot of those guys go in thinking that they're going to move up, or thinking that that if they're at a Power 5 team and maybe they're a big recruiter over, they think, oh, I'm going to have all these schools calling me that used to recruit me when I was in high school, stuff like that. The reality is, just based on the roster spots that are actually available, less than 500 of those 2,000, really about 25% of those guys overall ended up on Power 5 rosters this fall. And so, if you're leaving a situation where you're on scholarship, and look, I certainly understand there's a lot of cases where players are asked to leave or get cut or whatever. There's a lot more of that going on these days. But if you're walking away from a scholarship right now, you need to be strategic about how you go through that process. And we also learned you really need to go in November, December, January. That you're going to have a much better chance of actually finding somewhere to go if you do this at the start of the off season. And that's why they're trying to push these transfer windows so that more guys do that. But no, you're right. There's definitely some players that move up who were under recruited in high school, and there are definitely some guys that were over recruited in high school who probably, maybe they should be at that G5 level where they can get more playing time and maybe shine.
Max, elsewhere on Friday, we saw George Kliavkoff take the podium and talk about the Pac. It was much anticipated press conference, the last of the Power 5 commissioners, and certainly one that's kind of under the microscope right now. What were your thoughts on what he had to say about, USC, UCLA, the Big 12, further expansion, and so on?
Yeah, it was a fascinating day for sure. I think that, not surprised that George Kliavkoff felt like he had to try to kind of shoot down the Big 12 stuff, put it out there that he feels like, none of his schools are going to be leaving for the Big 12 and try and, talk down on Big 12 basically and throw in this, these allegations that, Big 12 presidents are reaching out to his presidents, which I'm sure is true. And, I think the term he used was, grenades being thrown here in the past 4 weeks. I get why he's got to take the stance he did. It is interesting to me, though. I felt like he was kind of punching down to the Big 12 and was maybe a little bit afraid to punch up to the Big 10 there a little bit, because that is the league that, he was in an alliance with, who took two of his most valuable members and created this disruption. But it seems like they're not so afraid of schools going to the Big 12, which we'll see if Brett Yormark can pull that off. But I think it's probably the Big Ten he needs to be more worried about.
We've been discussing that throughout most of. Paul was here by himself, not by himself, but on Friday when all of that was going on. But you just kind of discussed exactly what we did to start today's show.
Yeah, you're preaching, and the fact that they're still the threat, Max. Like, I mean, I know the Big 12 is the threat right now in front of them, so to speak. Right. But, I mean, the reason why they probably will not sign a long-term grant of rights is because the brands that the Big Ten might be most interested in are not going to be willing to sign a long-term grant of rights. Basically, is that right?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I don't think there's any incentive for Oregon and Washington. I mean, you could appeal to them of, hey, fine, yeah, we'll do unequal revenue sharing and give you more money if that keeps you here and stuff like that. But no, there's no incentive to sign a grant of rights, especially with just the way this is setting up, where it probably won't even be that long of a TV deal if that's kind of what they're seemingly aiming for. But no, they should. I think they should for sure be fearful of that Kevin Warren might not be done, because the Big Ten, yeah, they're probably done here in the next few weeks or months in terms of wrapping up their TV deal and working towards that stuff. But no, if the Big Ten decides that they want to add West Coast partners for USC and UCLA, then they can snap their fingers and do that. I mean, the money gap is so great that, yeah, there's not really anything holding this Pac-12 together. And I think that is the appeal that Brett Yormark is making to the corner schools, the Pac-12 South schools, that do you want to stay in that league where they're not getting an offer from Fox, and we'll see if they get an offer this week from ESPN, but they clearly want to go to market and pursue, streaming partners and stuff like that in hopes of a big payday. But do you really want to stick around and just wait for Oregon and Washington to bail on you and kill your conference?
Max, that is another interesting thing, is that he can sit there and kind of quietly do it. But Kevin Warren, I mean, last week he was dropping bombs I mean, he wasn't afraid to answer anything. No more automatic qualifiers. I've changed my mind. 16-team playoff. Why the hell not? Let's, we could expand again. I don't know. Who knows what's in the cards? I can't see the future. This is kind of a different thing than we've heard before. Even a guy as bold as Greg Sankey wasn't saying some of those things that Kevin Warren was saying the other day.
Yeah, and that's where I'm sure there's probably – and look, on the media side, obviously we love that when somebody's throwing out stuff like that. But, I mean, I think there's probably Kevin Warren still trying to, kind of get the hang of, the gravitas of the position there a little bit. And you got to kind of be careful about you don't often see these guys sort of float out, hypotheticals and stuff like that. It was interesting to see. You're right. He was a little bit more loose than Indy and willing to engage on some of these things that may or may not actually happen. So, yeah, the Big Ten position here is interesting. If they can come to a conclusion here in the near future that they feel like adding Pac-12 members is additive. I mean, obviously the white whale here is Notre Dame, but if for whatever reason they decide that it's beneficial to them to add West Coast partners, Pac-12's in trouble. And it's funny because George Kliavkoff acknowledged these things in his address on Friday about how important the student-athlete experience needs to be, and the travel piece of this is a problem and all that stuff. So, you can make that a lot easier in the Big Ten by taking more Pac-12 teams.
Max, speaking of Kevin Warren and Greg Sankey and others, weird how all of a sudden the playoff might expand sooner rather than later with all of that's swirling around right now. I mean, Kevin Warren being open to the idea, and all of a sudden 16 is just a real convenient number for a lot of people, isn't it?
I thought the Greg Sankey response to that last week was pretty telling, that he was just essentially rolling his eyes and saying, yeah, these guys all talk. It's funny how these guys all talk a big game at their media days, but when we actually get in meetings, they hold all this progress up. So I'm sure that he's skeptical that they can actually, rally and put something together here. But no, you're right. It is interesting how that can just turn on a dime there. Obviously, what's become even more clear now is that the Big Ten opposed this because they were looking out for Fox and because they wanted the playoff to go to market and have multiple partners. And I get that. I mean, obviously Fox just helped deliver them USC and UCLA. So you kind of get the incentives there. But, it is interesting to see kind of the 12 versus 16 talk kind of change here a little bit. I personally, I'm sure I've told you guys, I thought the 12 model was pretty good, but, it seems like there's momentum now on a different idea. And, can they actually execute that before that deadline? I'm skeptical at this point, but yeah, sure. It's definitely encouraging to see a tiny bit of optimism there in the past few weeks.
Well, it is. I think it's a lesson learned that sometimes when leaders of something say kind of ridiculous things, like the party line on why they didn't want to really get into it was because automatic qualifiers had to be a thing. And then you start thinking of, based on the plan that we saw, when would the situation be that your conference champion was so bad that they wouldn't get in automatically? And like, oh, well, it's just all about TV. That's all it was. And all that.
Yeah.
What if you just said that? Like, look, we'd like to maybe negotiate a better TV deal on this.
Yeah, and I think I would hope that some of the fundamentals of the 12-team proposal are still there, because I think obviously this has to be about more access, and that has to include more Group of 5 access, because they've got basically none right now, other than Cincinnati making it last year. So I hope you can still protect that in some way. That's why I kind of like the sixth best conference champs, but certainly the AQ issue is going to be a big one here going forward, and that became obvious when the Big Ten made the move that they did in adding to their conference. I think they had a chance to compromise with Greg Sankey, and they blew it. And I don't think he's going to be quite as amenable to compromising on that, because he suddenly has a conference that, just in terms of the brands they have and the level that they recruit at and stuff. I mean, if there's a 16-team playoff, I'm sure Greg Sankey thinks that probably 5 or 6 of the teams in that playoff should come from the SEC.
Man, it's crazy.
If not more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Man, it leads me to something else, but that'll have to be for another time, about just the regular season, and the value of every week mattering versus, if there's a 16-team playoff and you can be 6th place in the SEC and still get in, then what did that week 3 loss matter, But I guess that's a conversation for another time. Max, Colton Vasek, big-time player out of Austin Westlake, just committed to Oklahoma a little over an hour ago. What do you make of this recruiting run that Brent Venables and company are on right now?
Yeah, it's impressive for sure. That was one of those things that, like, you knew Brent Venables was obviously, like, the right guy for the job in a ton of different ways for Oklahoma. But that is the one area you do wonder, because I think Lincoln Riley, to his credit, as much as people felt like he was, Oklahoma fans felt like he was slipping every year or whatever, he certainly, the recruiting was at a pretty steadily high level since he took over as head coach. And so you wondered, to Brent Venables, is Oklahoma going to be a legit top 10 recruiting program under Venables, who just, obviously hadn't been a head coach before, so you just kind of don't totally know. Or is it kind of more where they were under Stoops, or it's maybe more in that 10 to 15 range towards the end of the Stoops tenure? And I think clearly you're seeing Oklahoma is going to be able to recruit at a top 5 to 10 level here for sure. Love the pieces that they're adding on defense. Colton Vasek's a player that they took out of Austin Westlake. His dad played at Texas, a guy who just visited Texas over the weekend, hung out with Arch Manning for the weekend, and Oregon was really high on his list too. So that's a great win up front for them. They've got some big dudes in this class. They've got a really talented quarterback. Obviously, have Denton Guyer and Jackson Arnold. Love what they're putting together there, and certainly the SEC pitch, I'm sure, probably helps a little bit. But I think there's just a ton of kids that are just really excited about Venables and where they're going.
Max, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Max Olson, theathletic.com college football writer, with us normally on Thursdays, but had to bump it back a couple of days because he was busy and doing things, and including Friday and the column he wrote in the Athletic about the Pac-12.
He called me on Friday about 10 minutes after George Kliavkoff walked off the stage.
Said, I'm not going to be able to be on the show.
He said, I could maybe, possibly, but instead of having to play phone tag, and I was like, I really appreciate it because, I was here without the two of you guys, so I didn't have, I can bail and make a call when you guys are here, but if you're not, it's just going to look at some helmets back there, which I'm sure some of our audience will be like, that's awesome. Look at those helmets. But, I couldn't do it, so it was great to have him here. Plus, had the weekend to kind of react to how everybody else, said things and reacted and moved on. And
some of the questions for Max we couldn't get to because of time, but since he's talking about the NIL, and I can answer this one very quickly, what kind of punishment does he see for schools that are already what might face there are no violations.
Yeah.
I know that there are some schools who are taking much more advantage of the NIL than others, and you could sit there, and if it was your school, you'd love it. If it wasn't, there's nothing right now that it come back down the road. I don't even think that when it comes to whoever's doing better and whoever's more attached to NIL than based on reporting, recruiting, whatever else.
I mean, they seem pretty toothless over at the NCAA right now. And I understand Linda Livingstone, as the president at Baylor, is, climbing the chain of command over there. She's definitely high on the ladder over at the NCAA, or at least appears to, to be, as far as the new version of the NCAA. And so I respect that, and I definitely respect her. But, in terms of the big, bad NCAA, the way you used to think about them, the way you used to shudder at the thought of, oh, my gosh, my school's under investigation, because you really had no idea what that might turn into, because it could be your worst fear, the death penalty, or it could be, loss of scholarships, or it could be absolutely big nothing burger. You just never knew. Like, by the end especially, you just never knew what direction they were going to go with anything. And it's all very confusing. And then, once the what was the big case that really blew them up? Was it Penn State, you think, or I don't know.
As far as enforcement?
Yeah.
I think it was Penn State.
Yeah, probably Penn State, because they came out so hard and then had to reverse course.
They tried to put down the hammer on things that were not under their jurisdiction.
They tried to basically be a judge and jury in real life, not of athletic side of things. And so that happened, and ever since then, quite frankly, you saw them really back off from trying to be strong-armed about things.
North Carolina happened a couple years after that, where North Carolina found a way that you could cheat if you don't make it an extra benefit, because that's what's specifically written into the language. So everybody, if Baylor had done that, we have 2 Baylor students here right now. As long as they can take that class, the athletes could. It's not a violation. Now they have other things they have to look into, as far as academic credibility.
Then speaking of Baylor, people wanted them to go full force death penalty on Baylor, and didn't realize the whole time they don't have jurisdiction over most of that. Again, they're not the police. They're not the real judge and the real jury and all that. They're the NCAA. And the fact that people used to think of them in that way is kind of funny now, looking back on it, on how feared they were. And you realize what a paper tiger they actually were. All you had to do was
the IRS.
All you had to do was just sue them. All you had to do was just sue them back, and then you would get your thing, whatever that may be, your penalty probably reversed in some form or fashion. Or it happened enough to where they just stopped trying to be the big overarching, fist of justice and all of that. So to your question, I don't think anybody's worried about anything from the NCAA when it comes to recruiting and benefits and all of that in this era right now. I just think that's so off their table.
Yeah, and I also think you need to look at the way things change. So what happened in the NCAA is what happens with a lot of things. So, okay, let's go back to, you had the $1 billion Mega Millions, right? Well, the lottery was born out of numbers. Used to be, you'd run numbers in a neighborhood and the local gangster would do that and it was illegal, right? So then the states were like, hey, well, what if we made this legal and just made all the money oursells? So they made numbers legal, and that's the lottery that we all play today. It's essentially the same thing. It's just run by the state. Ticket scalping. You guys, go to an event and see guys saying, I need to. Well, they made it essentially impossible to do since almost every ticket is digital now, but they didn't really end ticket scalping. They just gave it over to Ticketmaster and SeatGeek and Vivid Seats and everybody else that can take a ticket that's worth $100 and then put it online for $350. That's ticket scalping. It's just now legal. So what happened to the NCAA is, we can't enforce any of this, and it's kind of antiquated and outdated. So all the stuff that used to be legal is legal now, and now we're just trying to kind of just be a light fence around it.
There's not even a light fence.
Yeah.
It's like those old, back in the day, depending on where you live, depending on the facilities, the money in the neighborhood, some of those baseball fields did not have an outfield fence because they couldn't afford it, and the NCAA right now has too much on their plate. And as far as schools that are hot, Bastick, we just mentioned, Oklahoma's had a really good July. Before that, A&M had a really, really good July. And then, of course, Miami's had their run. We know Notre Dame's had their run. We know that Alabama is having their run as they're climbing up the charts. Texas has had theirs. Ohio State's had theirs. The same schools you could use again, most likely at this time next year or even 5 to 10 years ago. All right, when we come back, the 4 o'clock hour continues. Back to Max Olson. I thought the interesting note, and Paul, you kind of alluded to this, 49% of those players who entered the transfer portal, about 2,000 plus, went down a level. 49%. We hear about the ones that may move up, the kid from Incarnate Word to Washington State. 6% moved up. 26% stayed the same. 19% of those 2,000 remain unsigned to this day. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco, behind the bank. If you're in Google Maps and you go down there and you're like, hey, there's nothing here. No, they're across the street now. They've been there for quite some time, but apparently the wheels of Google don't run as fast as they would like, and so sometimes you'll wind up across the street. Look, if you don't feel like going and standing up and getting something, you can just go on your phone, go to DoorDash, order what you want, and get it delivered there to your house. And what can get delivered to your house? Only the finest selection of locally crafted bourbons in the area, whether it's Balcones, Devil's River, TX, Garrison Brothers. They've got them all there at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. They also have the best selection of craft beers in Waco. Summer beers going right now. About to have the fall beers coming in here in probably about 6 weeks or so, even though we don't have fall in Texas really. But they still have fall beers, so those will all be coming around at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Check them out on Instagram. You can see all the cool stuff they do. They always do kind of cool promotions, whether it's for seltzer or for wine, for whatever. They've got great selections of everything, great customer service, and a speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, also available on DoorDash.
You know that guy that walks around with pants that are just a little too short? And he's wearing brand new loafers, but no socks? Then he crosses his legs right across from you, and you have to look at his bare ankles. Ugh. Well, that's what it's like to drive your truck around without any step bars. Hi, Jay from Pickup Outfitters here to talk about one of the most common forms of truck nudity, driving around without any step bars, a rampant problem in Central Texas. Now, step bars do have their functional benefits. They save wear and tear on your back and your knees. They make it easy for your wife and your children to get in and out of your truck. But mostly, having step bars on your truck is just the decent thing to do. No one wants to look at your bare rocker panels. So help us end truck nudity and put some step bars on that truck. We have some great specials on either the black or the stainless steel chrome look. Check it out at createacommotion.com/steps. Don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution, and help us end truck nudity at Pickup Outfitters.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the City of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience, where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs. Knowing you, that's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. I've seen people walk in there. First of all, you have so much to show, whether necklaces, bracelets, rings. You have the watches. You have numerous great watches as well. You really have pretty much everything, don't you, when it comes to jewelry?
That's correct. Kind of a one-stop shop and all. And the fact that we have the 2 jewelers on staff, the repairs we can do, the fixing of your jewelry, and the remaking of any jewelry has really set us apart from anybody else.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Thanks to Max Olson, Dick Harmon, Deseret. News on many things. His thoughts about college football, Pac-12, Big 12, Utah, Brigham Young, etc. Sam Bradshaw is going to join us with some graphics in the 5 o'clock hour on a project he put up in the premium section of Sikkim 365 Radio back on Friday afternoon. You want to dive into Deshaun Watson?
Yeah.
Or Bill Russell?
I think we should probably talk about Deshaun Watson first.
Okay. All right. Deshaun Watson. That story came down. It was going to come out earlier today.
Boy, one is not like the other, huh?
No. I want to get into Bill Russell myself because I had somebody contact me on Twitter yesterday when I mentioned he's the greatest team winner I've ever seen in my lifetime. And they were like, well, but if he played today. No, if he played today, he would have the same nutrition. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah, that's just a clueless. I used to be that guy too, but then I grew up and realized how stupid that was. I understand you can make that comment in certain sections, but I mean, the pampering level these days is just so off the charts that the whole, they were just firemen and plumbers playing. That's not the insult that you think it is. It actually, I think, reinforces the case of the older players. But anyways.
Yeah, well, I want to dive into that.
How good Mickey Mantle would be if they got him to quit smoking?
Yeah.
Not even drinking.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
they probably could have done better in this era than then.
Deshaun Watson. He missed last year. He was not suspended last year. He missed last year, and I've seen this today with some reactions to his suspension of 6 games for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. He missed last year because he refused to play for Houston. That's why he missed last year. He was not suspended last year. Last year, of course, was a soap opera as well. So on the chat room, yes, we love college football and discussing it as much as we possibly can. But this is a national story. He got a 6-game suspension without pay. I saw some numbers. This is from, is it not Tim Brandt? It's, oh my God, who is it? Andrew Brandt. His $45,000 signing bonus, he gets all of it. His $46 million guaranteed salary this year, he gets all but $350,000 of it. His $184 million remaining guaranteed money, he gets all of it. So he gets 6 games in a $330, whatever it is, over $350,000, $60,000 basically loses money. Did they get it right?
I don't think so.
DeAndre Hopkins got 6 games for PED. Zeke got, what was it, 5 or 6 games for a single event that, again, he was never convicted of. Calvin Ridley got a year for gambling. I don't know what the right answer is here.
Well, I'll say this about the NFL apparently wanted a full season suspension. They felt it merited that. But they're the ones who started this process and had the independent arbiter. So if they fight it and then it goes back to Roger Goodell and he says it's a year long, then what does that say about their process in the first place? So the NFL has now put itself in a position where it's going to look bad. And it's its own fault because of this system. Because Roger Goodell,
because Goodell abused it.
Well, and then look, and Goodell is the one who, when it appeals, he's the one who gets to say what the suspension is. So, and then that, like right now, Deshaun Watson said he's not going to fight it, but if it's a season long, he's going to fight it, and then you're going to have all this turmoil that, in no way, weighs for the gravity of what he did, which was, at best, be a disgusting pervert with a ton of massage therapists and bring shame to the league. Isn't that what's supposed to they're about protecting the shield? They're not about protecting anything right now.
The number one thing they get worried about is protecting the shield.
Yeah. It's kind of ridiculous.
How many did Tom Brady get for deflate?
4 games.
4 games. For deflating footballs.
Yeah.
And I know some people thought that maybe he should have gotten more. There's always the argument. So I thought it would be at least 8 to 12 games. He gets 6. Does it affect me in my everyday? No. But, boy, Cleveland was being torched because of the deal that they gave him, the guarantees they gave him that he might not play ever again, much less he might not play for at least a year. And in the end, everything they gave him, he'll be eligible with about 2/3 of the season left at $6 million.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say on this. I prefer talking college football to the NFL, but this is a huge story. And Deshaun Watson was a huge college football star not that long ago. I don't know what really happened. I definitely have seen cases where lawyers are known to ratchet up numbers to throw out there in the public to get people feeling a certain type of way. And so I can't rule that out in some ways with Deshaun Watson, right? I can't rule out that lawyers have been trumpeting up numbers and just, hey, if we make it look large enough, then there's no way you can deny that, something or whatever. But I don't know how much of that's true and false. Like how much of that is the women speaking are telling the truth and that's what happened, and how much of it is maybe others jumping on board. I don't know, man. That's what makes it so hard with cases like this, is none of us that are not involved really truly know. But has enough gone on that I think really differently about Deshaun Watson than I did 2 or 3 years ago? Yeah, absolutely. Do I think that he is culpable in some ways? Yeah, absolutely I do. It's just way too much and way too much hitting close to kind of like the same sort of tale. No matter which case you're talking about, it just seems very serial and gross. And he seems gross, and The reception I saw him get at the Browns training camp today with all those little kids asking for his autograph just feels really gross. And the Browns are just really gross and desperate, obviously. I don't know. I'm not going to seek out any Browns games, just simply because of this, honestly. And I'm not trying to make a stand or whatever. Like, that's just me personally. I just find it all very gross. And I don't have much – I really don't have many more thoughts on it. The only thing, I guess, being that the NFL talks a big game, but they're totally full of crap in almost every single way. They talk about protecting the shield. Yeah, they're talking about protecting the league, not protecting people or protecting, the stuff that really matters. It's a nice little phrase that makes you think that they actually care. They don't care. They didn't care about Ray Rice until the video came out. They will gloss over this because guess what? In October, November, whatever, a bunch of guys will wear pink cleats and show you that they care about women and cancer, and they have all the right things in mind.
Military.
And then they'll have some Microsoft commercial with the female 49ers assistant coach, and look, we care about women. We're hiring women now, and they'll do all that, and they'll convince the mainstream that they care about women because look, they've hired assistant coaches or the front office, first time ever hire, and then they'll wear their pink and all that, and everything will be fine, and they'll make their billions of dollars, and then we'll just all go about our business. So that's what'll happen, and it's all very gross. It's all very gross.
I don't know if I could say anything better than that. I really don't. I don't know how much I could say anything
I have no hope that it's going to, it's just this totally not shocking to me. So, yeah.
Well, that came down. You know what? Good. Now we can move on. That doesn't mean that the alleged victims can move on. It was interesting. I think he had 3 more lawsuits settled yesterday evening or on the eve of this decision coming down.
Well, I believe that's where some of the money that he's losing is coming from, is probably settling lawsuits. I believe I might have read that earlier. That's where the actual deductions are coming from, is him just settling these lawsuits. So, if those women are fine with their resolution, whatever that may be, then, good on them. That's up to them to decide. For those who are not satisfied, the real victims out there, heart goes out to you. But yeah, I mean, just when it comes to the NFL and that whole business of the NFL and the shield and all that crap, it's just so bogus. It's just so bogus and fake, and it has been the entire time under Goodell. But boy, they'll have a billion commercials about how much they care and how much you should buy those pink gloves to support awareness and all this other junk that's just basically to sell stuff. But yeah, the shield, whatever.
Fan bases will just chew it up, eat it up.
Look at Brown's training camp today, man. They did not care one single second.
Here's another thing. You could sit there if you're a fan of another team, or maybe you're what's Cleveland's biggest rival, the Steelers. Is that right?
Yeah,
for Cleveland.
Yeah.
The Ravens, maybe.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay. You might sit there and go, oh, my God, how can they let him play if it was your quarterback? And probably at some point, Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger, who got 6 games for one incident. Two incidents in a nightclub or whatever it was.
One was in a hotel,
sports bar. He got 6
Paul,
games.
do you want to tell the story?
Yeah. How would you compare his punishment of 6 games to that of what Watson was accused of 6 games?
I would say, to me, it's kind of all the same. And I don't think anybody gets enough.
No.
I mean, I don't think that anybody does. I think that some guys I think Brady got too much. I think Calvin Ridley got too much for whatever he did last year when he wasn't playing and he's suspended for the year.
Betting on
games. I think he got a little too much for that. I mean, based on what's a bigger crime,
If Ridley would have done that 10 to 15 or longer, like Paul Hornung and Alex Karras back in the 60s, yes, I'm old enough to remember that. It's one thing. But now the way that the NFL embraces gambling or embraces sponsors who are a part of it.
It's almost like they're totally full of crap in every way, shape, and form. They are the most bogus when it comes to all this, shield and concern. It's all fake. It's all fake, man. They're just all about the money like everything else. But it's like anytime they want to talk about the treatment of women because the 49ers hired a assistant coach or because, again, they wear pink during a certain month. Completely erases all of the other actual, real life stuff going on that every time it comes up in their league, they just turn a blind eye to it or pretend like all of a sudden, they're at a loss. It's so bogus.
It's breast cancer awareness. That's a great thing.
That's a great thing.
Or domestic violence or abuse of women. That's a great thing to fight for. But Are you doing it only because of the PR? And you wonder at times, and I'm not saying not everybody within the league, but you wonder at times, do they really, really care? One note that Andrew Brandt, who's an executive director for Murad Center at Villanova, he said this is one of the keys to the ruling today by Ms. Robinson. It is undisputed that prior cases involving nonviolent sexual assault have resulted in discipline far less severe than what the NFL proposes here. And, of course, the report was they wanted a full season, with the most severe penalty being a 3-game suspension for a player who had been previously warned about his conduct. And I don't remember who that might be attached to. But Mr. Watson's pattern of conduct is more egregious than any before reviewed by the NFL. So there's all sorts of little nuggets in there that you can look at. Here's another one. Reasoning for not imposing harsher suspension seems to come down to the NFL precedent being much lower for nonviolent sexual assault, which apparently would exclude Roethlisberger, Zeke, Kareem Hunt, and Ray Rice. Seems curious, perhaps grist for NFL appeal. You think that Goodell's going to add on to this? I think he's going to walk away and say we can't do anything about it.
I think he's between a rock and a hard place because this is their process. And then to say, well, I've got to do more, well, this is what you agreed to. Now, would that make it right for Roger Goodell to add more? Absolutely, it would make it right. But then you get the lawyers involved, and you're going to start. It's just going to go back and forth. So I'm not telling you what's right and wrong. I'm just telling you what the NFL is likely to do to make this thing go in the rear view as fast as it can.
It got to the point for me that I was almost worn out by the annual drama in the offseason over sometimes what I didn't quite understand was such a big deal. And that doesn't mean I'm right, but Tom Brady and New England and the footballs. And I know people hated the Patriots because they won. That's not why they won, but I know why you hated the Patriots. A lot of people just got numb to them. The other one was the Saints, the Bounty Gate, which to me just dragged on and on and on. And so I don't know. Here's the part that really bothered me that we'll take a break here. Watson used money from the Texans and Browns to settle lawsuits brought by 24 and counting women he sought out for massage. And now he will suffer only $350,000 in financial loss on a $230 million contract for his actions. There's something, this is from Andrew Brandt. Craig, you used that. Something icky about all of this. That the two teams, the Texans and Browns, money from them used to help settle the lawsuits for 24. I hate it for whoever was a victim. I'm glad the story, though, is over. At least maybe over the next few days it dissolves, and then we move on. Tired of those. Deebo Samuel, South Carolina, Paul, that where he played?
Yep.
Signed a big boy deal, $25 million a year or close to that.
All you had to do is go to Chipotle with Dak Prescott, apparently, and then all of a sudden the whole world's going to think, oh, all he wants to do is be a cowboy. Look, he's eating a burrito with Dak. Oh, God.
If it was any other quarterback for any other team, would it have mattered?
They'd have been like, oh, look at that. He ran into each other at Chipotle.
Yeah, a couple of buddies, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. All right.
I don't know if they went to Chipotle, but that's kind of how minor things happen. They did a workout together at the same spot in the offseason.
Is Jack the one that is not a big fan of that particular?
No, that's me.
Oh, it's you.
Yeah.
You said the word. It's like a cuss word for you. All right, many more things to get to. Jim Nelson, by the way, thank you for the email you sent me, a text message, and then me, the Brigham Young helmet that came in late last week. Here's one of the things. He goes, your shows, we love them. Sikkim 365, you guys are insightful, professional. All we have to do is just be able to watch whatever we can, thanks to Jim, to get caught up on whatever you guys are saying. I'm going to send you 2 mini helmets. They're both white, but one has a navy face mask, the other has a royal blue face mask, and, of course, the West Virginia helmets that came in as well. We can't help you. Thank you enough as far as that as well. When we come back, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. People you can count on. People at Richard Carr. Been in business for over 20 years now, serving people in Waco and Central Texas, and I can attest that as of a couple of months ago, had to go in there to Richard Carr, get my car all fixed up, and When it comes to customer service, I can certainly attest that they are the best in the business. When it comes to treating your car, truck, or SUV, whatever problems they may have, they take good care of you. And that's why they've been in business as long as they have. That's why they've been a fixture in Central Texas. But if you're in the market for a car or a truck, especially new ones, well, don't wait any longer. Get your name on their inbound vehicle list to reserve a brand new Buick, GMC, or Cadillac before anyone else. That's if you're looking to buy new. You want to make sure with supply chain issues and the delays in getting new cars and trucks on the lot that you're able to get it as quickly as possible. We'll get it on the inbound vehicle list. But if you're just looking to get into something as soon as possible, like tomorrow, since the dealership will close here in 10 minutes, if you need a car today, tomorrow, as soon as possible, consider there dozens of quality pre-owned cars and trucks. All of them go through a 172-point inspection so you can drive them with peace of mind, and they will pay top dollar on your trade with dozens of lending options. They say yes to loans when others say no. Go online or come by to check out their inventory today. If you want to drive your current car longer, Richard Car Motors has award-winning service from their collision and service center. As I mentioned earlier, they have great deals like price match guarantee on new tires and oil changes as low as $63.95. They are the dealer you can count on for a great deal, great customer service, and superior service for the life of your car. So trust those good local people. Richard Carr, run by proud Wacoans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
The 213 was discussing college football and culture. He was discussing, again, the Rams Super Bowl parade. And I remember when the Cowboys won for the first time in forever, when they won Super Bowl, what would it have been, 27? I guess that's what it was. Yeah, 27, 28, and 30. And they had a parade in Dallas or wherever it was. There's hundreds, like a presidential parade, a ticker tape and everything. The 213, the football culture got that way we're in the South or wherever because they have no other options. What else can you do in the Midwest and the South during the fall? Football is all they have. And this is not saying there's not entertainment in certain places, but he's making the weather and lack of entertainment options, especially for a small cost, gives football culture nowhere else to go for alternatives. Hunting and fishing are now too expensive for most, and nobody in that part of the world participates or has any interest or knowledge in arts and theater. What else can they afford to do? Nothing. Football is a default for boredom for many, especially once the cold weather hits. That's unfortunate unless you profit from the football, and very few do. I was a little bit edgy, but you know, if you're in L.A.,
is that a Cal graduate? Like, what the hell is this?
Maybe. He's a pretty good dude, though. But
I mean, I'm sure, but yeah, we're just a bunch of uncultured, just if we don't have football, we don't know what to do with ourselves down here. I mean, I kind of get that, but it's very kind of passive-aggressive, insulting also in a way, unless I'm just totally hearing that wrong. But
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna read this again. Hold on. What else can they afford to do?
Yeah, okay, there's that. Can't afford to do that. Don't have any arts or anything like that around here, nor would we be interested, apparently.
He actually was also making a point about how the football fan bases in Southern Cal it's just not relevant. That football is
yes, because they have too much money to spend on other things, and they're so cultured and artsy, and they have those options that we have nothing to do down here. Nothing. No other options. No theaters. No arts programs. I mean, I need a little more to kind of digest what that was supposed to mean exactly.
Yeah, I need him to expound on that a little bit, because I get it. Look, you can't just go. The best concerts in the world don't come to Sioux City, Iowa. But
you just went to Garth Brooks in Arlington.
But that's in Dallas. Yeah, but yeah, it's true. But it's in Dallas. Yeah, I don't think he's talking about Dallas. I think he's talking about Waco and Manhattan and Ames and places like that. So yeah, but I just went to Garth Brooks in Dallas, and then I stayed in Arlington. And I stayed in Fort Worth. Fort Worth has Bass Hall, which is the acme of high culture. They have every kind of traveling Broadway show you could. They had Mean Girls was there the other day, and I actually, I ran into Steve Burton at the Cheesecake Factory. Our friend who from here in Waco, he was going to see Mean Girls with his family the other day. So yeah, there's plenty of culture. You just have to go seek it out. But I don't think it's that. I think it's also just the passion built around it. And I can't speak for states that I haven't lived in, but I can speak for Texas in that there's so much weight placed on high school football that you start playing football before high school because you get ready for high school, where other places maybe the younger participation is a little bit lower, and it goes and goes and goes. So you love football your whole life and have passionate feelings about it forever. That's where the love of football comes from. It's not because you can't go see Bye Bye Birdie. It's just because it's just ingrained in all these places.
From Joel, what in the hell is he talking about?
That's what I'm saying, man.
Well, I mean, it's his opinion, and I'm reading it. I'm not a guy that's like in the arts and theaters. Doesn't mean that's why I go watch football. Completely untrue on many levels, from arts to music to lake life. How have you been? Have you been to Houston, Orlando, Texas? No, those are some pretty big cities, though. UCF with Ocean and Gulf of Mexico, Texas and Gulf of Mexico and Texas. The SEC has some of the best weather in the country to do many things, but love college football. I do think that the football culture is something like in certain other places you have outdoor culture or other hobbies. But Paul, Nashville, Tennessee, you've now been there more recently than before. It's an incredible entertainment city.
Yeah, it's an incredible entertainment city, but they love their sports too.
They do love their sport,
they're nuts for hockey. They're nuts for the NFL. I wouldn't say they're as nuts for Vanderbilt, but there's still, a lot of people. Look, a lot of people I know who grew up in Nashville are Vanderbilt fans, whether they went to Vandy or not, because it's the team of the city. So yeah, I mean, they're sports nuts in Nashville as well, and there's concerts every night of the week, and not just Dave's 5 playing at the bar. It's big acts. So
from the 480, he sends me a picture of an Arizona helmet. I'm going to send one of these. Send it. Put it on the shelf. Send it. We appreciate that. If you do, you text us, and we'll give you the mailing address, whether it's Paul's house or where I live as well. But send it when you possibly can. 457. Sam Bradshaw in a few minutes on many things he did. A story. In fact, the title of it was Stop the Propaganda when it comes to facts and notes and data and analytics among all the things when it comes to who has what viewing, etc., the Pac-12 against the Big 12. When we come back, also a note or two about, in my lifetime, the greatest team winner ever, and someone whose legacy was just as powerful on the court as often Bill Russell. Yes, I want to help make sure we remember him, along with Sam Bradshaw and more. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, the Wagoneer Series 2 and 3 on the lot. I did test drive the Series 2. Sat inside the Series 3. It was fantastic. It's one of the nicest SUVs I've ever seen or been inside of, and it's at Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat on Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. Ted Teague, the general manager, spoke with him on the phone, in fact, late last week. Also, on top of that, Ram Trucks, Motor Trend's Truck of the Year, back-to-back Motor Trend's Truck of the Year, and amazing durability. Luxurious now inside those pickup truck cabs. I mean, it's just a different animal than it was even 10, 15, or even 5 years ago, the way that pickup trucks are built, and with luxurious type amenities as well. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, constantly with new cars and vehicles on the lot. Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance, and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com, or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
3rd and goal. Here's Shapen into the end zone, and how about that swagger? Another touchdown pass for Shapen. Ben Sims on the receiving end of this one.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Tom Albers, staying in touch with you and your money through these difficult and changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. This 5 o'clock hour, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Boy, I missed it. This chat room just started blowing up. One of the thoughts from somebody in the chat room, I wish I could get to it, but it's just boom, 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 is there are a lot of you that actually have air conditioning and running water. Just as a response to the response about what is there to do in California compared to elsewhere.
You know, the only time I haven't slept with AC in like 10 years was when I was in California, actually. Yeah. That was the only time that I have not slept with AC, weirdly enough. Now, I get that part of that's because the weather's always so good, but that's not true. That's not true. It's not fun to sleep when it's 81 degrees outside. So, yeah, I don't even know what that message was in regards to. I mean, I really don't, which is why I reacted the way that I did. Is first of all because it just seemed very insulting. I don't care what anybody says. The way that was phrased of like we've got nothing to do and no education basically, and it was like just a stereotypical of like what some dude in 1947 would have said about the South, basically. I get we're not the bee's knees or anything, but it ain't like ancient times over here. I don't know. What's weird about it is that I see more California license plates driving around Waco, Texas nowadays than I do Texas license plates. So must not be all that bad.
From the super chat, Gerald Hammond, thank you very much. We have everything you could imagine in the heartland. We even have air conditioning and indoor plumbing now. That dude is an example of the snobs that fill the Pac-12 or 10.
I only assume that's what it was trying to explain why the Pac-12 is somehow superior or something. Because he didn't give me any context to it, so I only assume that's what it was just like let me puff my chest out, we're superior on the West Coast and the Pac-12. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we care a lot about football down here, just like you care a lot about whatever you care about out there. I don't care enough to really go and research what that is, nor if it was falling apart would I give a damn about it. But, yeah, we care about football in the South and more than they do on the West Coast, and that's why I will maintain that the Big 12 is in a stronger position than the Pac-12. And if people want to argue over that because of brand value or whatever, let's just talk interest. Who has more people interested? And that's where I guess the markets and all that come into play, because technically Cal's got a bunch of fans and technically Stanford's got a bunch of fans because of where their campus happens to be parked. But if you actually watch their brands, then you know that's not exactly true. And that doesn't pan out market to fan base.
I would like to defend myself on the Airbnb assault that just happened.
I was just talking in California.
We never brought it up.
No, we did one time on Ventura Beach, and that one wasn't so bad once we got back and got the windows open and everything going. It just, we're gone all day and had to shut the house. It's not like we could leave this person's house just open all day long.
Is that the one that had ants?
Yeah, that had ants. Yeah. But then we had one the next year that the guy called me before we got there and said, hey, the 2 days that I said you can't, you need to find another place. So for 2 days we had to stay in this place, down the road.
Bullet holes in the window.
And it wasn't that bad. It was just, they didn't have AC, or they had just taken their AC out.
It was also a house that was split in two.
Yeah.
And there's a door in between the two that was actually not unlocked.
Yeah, it was so weird.
That was.
Yeah, and I want to make something very clear. I'm not like anti-Pac-12. Like, I'm really, if I could live somewhere, I'd want to live on the West Coast. Like, an ideal situation. Paul can attest to this.
Yeah.
Like, I love going to Southern California. There's no place that I've been that I love more than Southern California. I wish I could go out there and not, like, actually work and just be out there for, like, a couple days and go see things. So I have nothing against, the part of the country in that regard, and nothing against the Pac-12 conference. I mean, look, they got to do what they got to do and all that, but I just feel a little ornery today because of Kliavkoff's comments, and I understand why some are just trying to dismiss those of like, oh, well, he's got to say what he's got to say. Well, like, yeah, all of a sudden he's got a lot to say, doesn't he? It's just kind of funny how he all of a sudden has a lot to say. Didn't have a lot to say when the alliance crumbled. He has another backstab that Kevin Warren gave him, but Kevin Warren's just free and clear from any type of, criticism or whatever. But no, he's got to do it that way because he still could take his teams and crush the conference. But no, he's got to worry about Yormark and, like, spare me on that. But, yeah, I feel a little fired up towards the Pac-12 today, but I don't – like, I see people try to make it out to be, like, on Twitter and stuff, like, oh, they're pro this or anti that or whatever. I'm not anti anything Pac-12. I just totally believe the Big 12's in a stronger position right now, and I could be off on that. I could be off on that because the TV network says otherwise, and so be it. I'll swallow that and say I'm wrong and not worry too much about it. But, yeah, don't get it twisted. We're not out here actively rooting for the Pac-12 to die or anything like that. It's nothing personal, but I do think the Big 12's in a stronger position. I think they got more people that care, and I do think there are lots of wild card question marks. But, again, convince me how the team who is – or the side, I should say, the conference that has already lost two of its biggest brands. Okay, we can say that about both of them. But the other one's got two of its next biggest brands that are unlikely to sign long-term because the conference he doesn't want to talk about that already took their biggest brands and put them in the situation could on a moment's notice take those other ones as well and completely just kill the conference, period, right? So that to me just doesn't seem all that stable versus the schools who have already added four, who are all going up a level and who, yeah, might not be making a ton more than they're making now, but at least have some sort of stability and some sort of an outlook, whereas on the other side, I don't see that. I see a conference that's staying together simply because they have to, and the moment that the Big Ten were to call, then Oregon and Washington are out that door, and probably Stanford and Cal as well. And sure, you can make that argument that if Big Ten called Big 12, that Baylor and Tech and Oklahoma State and all them would walk out the door as well. But speaking of uppity, that doesn't seem to be the direction they're leaning.
Well, this is kind of speculation, fan passion, and what conference, what teams you like that are in conference. That's going to be a part of it forever and ever. Sports bar arguments and all that. But there has been, and part of what the Big 12 felt last year is when they were losing their two big boys, Oklahoma and Texas, there was this feeling that the Pac-12 went, we don't want any of you. And then all of a sudden, now the Pac-12's facing the same thing. And quite frankly, I wish none of this was happening. I hate it. Not because I'm old school. I love college football to where I hope that there's always, at least for the most part, stability of who has a chance to win a national championship. From Woody, Smoke Daddy, Oklahoma and UT are being very quiet. Another shoe might or will drop in January.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody on our end has ruled out that as a possibility. I mean, we haven't specifically said anything about them leaving in January, but I think, all of us would not be surprised. Okay, y'all can speak up if you disagree, but would any of us be surprised if this was their last year?
I mean, nothing.
It really wouldn't surprise me all that much. I mean, maybe a little bit just because they would be chewing a lot of that payment, whereas they could wait one more year and knock that down a little bit more and give themselves a little extra breathing room. It just seems like unless they've really been behind the scenes grinding to do that all of a sudden in January, when you look up and it's already August, that just seems like kind of quick all of a sudden. Unless they've been planning accordingly, and maybe they have. I mean, not going to put anything past them after the events of last summer, right? So,
all right.
Maybe.
I just think it'd be really – it's really hard for me to do the math on, like, how you'd get that back in the time if you're Oklahoma, especially, that doesn't have – the coffers that Texas does.
So you're taking whether it's 60, 80, or 150 million, which we don't know. We've heard estimates how they're going to get an investment return on that when they're in the SEC.
But here's the thing: unless there's 3 to 4 to 1 ROI on something really quickly, that's lost money for years, right?
Yeah.
So if I could have gotten out for zero, but then I paid 50, I'm still $50 million in the hole,
no matter
of what I
make.
could have overall than what I could have made. Even though I might get 100 right back, I could have had 150 million had I just waited.
Yeah, and I don't buy the whole like Oklahoma doesn't have money, but I mean, yeah, I do buy that to just cut like an $80 million check is not really up their alley compared to Texas. I mean, like just some things are not just that simple. Of like, it's just go cut the check, cut the check and get out. It's like, cut the $80 million check? Okay, let me get right on that. And, like, you know, you kind of got to cross some T's and dot some I's before I don't care who you are. Even if you're Texas cutting an $80 million check, you got to check some things first. So I won't be surprised. I have wondered of whether they're going to feel like they're lowering themselves to compete in the conference with the BYUs and the Cincinnatis and whether or not they might get out after this year just simply so they're not a part of the new Big 12 in any way, shape, or form. That thought has crossed my mind briefly just because – they seem like they would be the types to feel too good for that. But whether or not the financial side is too much of a hindrance, I think that's the big wild card question. And right now it kind of feels like it is, but who knows? Yeah, I mean, if they left in January, it might feel a little abrupt, but I don't think it would be a total shock to most people.
As long as the bills are paid and the money that is due at least within, I would say 75% or higher, are paid. Kuz's Corner, I live in West Virginia. I don't have shoes or teeth. Okay, stop.
But you got an internet connection, so
David
that's all that
Gonzalez.
matters.
We got color TV now in Oklahoma. We're moving on up. All right, we're having fun with all that.
Do they still owe money even if they bail out 2 years early? As far as or their rights would still be under the Big 12's control, though, right?
99 years. Right.
That's the thing of why, pay that huge chunk of money to get out a couple years early when your rights are still going to be under the Big 12's control. Like, that's where I see
they'll work that part out. That's why it's not just exit fees. There's also penalties involved as well.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
As far as to like them leaving next year, there would be a little bit of a complication because why would you do it 2 years remaining where your rights are not even in control of the conference that you're going to?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So that seems like it would complicate things a little bit more as well. But yeah, I mean, in theory, I'm sure they would have loved to have been playing in the SEC this year in so many ways, but I'm very curious to see if that lasts another 3 years. Can you imagine all this talk just in the last year alone of people guaranteeing, this and that and whatever? We could be looking at another 2-3 seasons of this coming up, which would be just absolutely wild. And part of me kind of hopes that is what happens.
Yep, it will be. You know what? Get to an end game with that. It's almost like these suspensions and all the drama. They will pay money. Somebody had mentioned earlier about the possibility of working something out if you're the ACC when it comes to grant of rights. It was so easy, they would have all walked out, or at least some of them would have walked out the door. And one of the reasons is that one was written just basically copy and paste to the Big 12's grant of rights. And look what, Texas can write a check for whatever amount. And if they can, good for you. It's great. I wish I could. And if they could and they could walk out the door, they would if they felt like they could get away with it.
But just to the ACC question specifically, why would they do that? Why would the ACC do that? I mean, that goes back to our argument from a couple weeks ago, I guess, of what benefit would the ACC get from allowing their teams to have an easier time to leave them? That doesn't make any sense to me. They have to have a good reason.
Because if ESPN feels like it would make the conference they have a deal with stronger to keep them from going elsewhere, would they not renegotiate it?
I don't know. We can argue about this some more because we did last time.
We're not joined by Sam Bradshaw, S11. He studies a lot of things, including football, X's and O's, and much more. We have Sam on usually on Fridays during football season, and he joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Now, Sam, thank you very much. You wrote an article that came out in the premium section, Stop the Propaganda, the truth about Big 12 versus Pac-12 TV numbers. We couldn't quite get you on Friday because of your schedule. What was behind all this? And is it because of some of the columnists trying to prop up the Pac-12 numbers?
Thanks for having me on. And truth be told, I was actually taking the numbers that I had and beginning to do a television rating series, and comparing the two is going to be like Article 4 in the series. But then you just have 3 or 4 different national writers with leaning towards the Pac-12 come out with some pretty misleading numbers at the beginning of last week. So I switched the order and put out the article, just adding some additional context to how those numbers got to where they are and really showing that a lot of the conclusions they're reaching weren't really supported by the data.
Well, Sam, just kind of broad strokes before we throw up some of these graphics that you sent. The data, to me, especially when you look at the overall numbers over a couple of games for all this, is from...
We have graphics we're going to put up?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
We do. But, you're talking about from 3 million to the middle of 2.13 between various different schools. There's not that much of a drop-off between any of these schools, is there?
Not really. Oregon's probably way out in front if you were going to do one team has to be in front, but everybody's a lot closer to each other than Kansas is to just about anybody. Kansas, it's the net result of having a decade plus of being at the absolute bottom of what you could potentially do win-loss record-wise. And, so they're struggling. But apart from that, there's really not a whole lot of spread among these brands when you look at average rating once you even out how many games you're sampling.
All right, so Garrett, put up the pie chart or the bar chart graphic that he sent here real quick so we can talk about it. Okay, so when you look at this one right here, this is Oregon at 3 million all the way down to Kansas at 680-something thousand. So that's not precipitous team to team. I mean, it goes down as kind of the size of the market and brands go down, but kind of explain this one with Oregon at 3 million all the way down to Kansas at 687,000, where the data is over this 2.5 games or 2.56 games that you did per school.
Right. Well, the first thing you got to understand, and the other graphic that I sent with kind of the hockey stick graph will give you a better idea. College football ratings, they go really big at the top games that an individual school or conference has, and then everything else is making up a much smaller percentage of the cumulative viewership. I think like the top 15 to 17% of games got half of the total cumulative viewership of all the games in my data. So the further you go down a team's schedule, the more you're adding in the weaker games that aren't adding in much of anything. So if you're taking the top games of one school against all of the games of another school, that's going to, and maybe you might be able to find one of the weaker teams in the country and compare them against Bama, and it might still tell you that Bama's better. But generally speaking, if you're comparing any schools that are remotely comparable, having different sample sizes is going to invalidate what you're doing from the very get-go. So the chart where all the schools were ranked, that chart, let's just take the same number of games for all these schools, and let's set the number of games at the minimum number of games it takes to get everybody. I think Colorado had 23 games over the 9 seasons that I sampled for that analysis. So everybody's top 23 games was sampled against each other, and that's how I got that rating. If you just do a simple average, or if you try and do average of what your home game ratings are, but you don't account for sample size, you get absurd things like, I think Stuart Mandel's article had all of the top 5 and 7 of the top 9 were in the Pac-12. Well, yeah, because you're ignoring all of their worst games, yet everybody playing Kansas is dragging ours down. Everybody playing the FCS team or the group of 5 teams that happen to be on nationally rated networks is dragging down the Big 12 averages. So it's just a flawed analysis to begin with. So the two things that this article set out to do is let's put even sample sizes together, so it's apples to apples, and then going even further, there was a difference in how often you appeared on different networks. And depending on what time of day you're on and depending on which network you're on, it can make a wild difference in your viewership numbers. So let's compare how they do, same day of the week, same channel, same time of day. Who does better when they both appear on the same time? Because the Pac-12 is not appearing at noon, and at least as far as conference games are going, the Big 12 is not appearing in the late night after dark slot.
Yeah, and Garrett's going to put that graphic up on the screen of the windows matter and the networks matter in that. And some of that isn't just, who you are. It's kind of luck of the draw based on the season too, right? That you might have gotten the 3:30 window on ABC.
Right. I mean, it depends on how you're doing that season. It depends on what other games are up against you. It depends on contractual minimums. For instance, does ESPN have a certain number of games they absolutely have to put on the Sun Belt, for instance, on one of their networks? That might kick you down to ESPNU if they have a major conference team playing at a Sun Belt school, because they'd rather do that than show ULM versus Troy. They'd rather show South Carolina at ULM, for instance. So if they have a way to mitigate the damage that some of those minimums would have. You've got so many business interests going in here, but as you can see on the chart here, of the Fox, ESPN, and ABC windows that the two conferences had in common, the Big 12 won almost, or at least the vast majority of them. They, quote-unquote, won. They had higher numbers, but it's very close. And this is two conferences where before the departures, the Big 12 was comfortably ahead. But after the four schools left the two conferences, it's gotten to be pretty even. So all these articles coming out saying that this conference is so ahead of that conference and blah, 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 it's really not taking the data into account in a way that I think is fair.
All right, can you explain this next one, the one that's the kind of the lines, Garrett, this one right here, that one. All right, this is the remaining 8 and Pac-10 games per year average viewers of conference games over 8 years, excluding title games and the people who left. So these are the teams that are left. Nobody's coming in. This is just who's left in both leagues. Can you explain what this one kind of shows?
Yes, this one shows basically however many games per year each of these schools is being averaged is a data point. So on the left, it's like your top third of a game, which over 9 seasons, that's like your top 3 games. Your 1 game per year is 9 games, 2 games per year is 18, so on and so forth. It's a way to see how they behave over different times, because depending on how many you're sampling, Washington State might be ahead of Utah or it might not be. Different schools perform better at different sample sizes. Just they sometimes have like a top game that's massive and is more get averaged in. They don't hold it as well. Others have more big games, so on and so forth. But what you get is each of these schools at each point on the graph is being compared on an equal number of games. So you get to see not only who's better at each data point, but you also get to see, as things go on, who's holding up over time, or are two tracking pretty similarly. Iowa State and Arizona State on this chart are almost in lockstep with each other. But if you took an average of all the games you had available, which is a lot of what these analyses do that have gone national, those analyses, they would be comparing the farthest right point on Iowa State to the farthest right point on Arizona State, which is several points on the graph apart from each other. So where these two have behaved almost identically on this chart, a simple average would completely distort that and completely mislead the situation.
The top level, by the way, leave it up for a second, Garrett. It's Oregon at the top, and then, of course, near the end, you start to see the Baylor. Is that the Sugar Bowl game? And, of course, the Big 12 championship game that got huge numbers as well. But then you have Oklahoma State. That's the yellow with the black triangles. And then after that, Baylor. Washington's in the middle of that mix, as you could imagine. Yeah, Kansas, unfortunately, at the bottom, not doing very well. Was there any team in particular? We heard about Washington State being maybe a school that had better viewership than most ever thought, and that's surely not supposed to be up. Is there anybody that surprised you in all this, Sam?
Washington State did really well. They had some really good spotlight games when Mike Leach was there. They've typically had a Black Friday TV window for the Apple Cup, which is Washington State. That typically does pretty well. So they did better than you expected. This chart does not include bowl games. It does not include title games. So Baylor did better than I thought they would. But TCU does well. Utah actually surprised me a little bit. They did pretty well. But the top 4 for the Big 12 have typically been, for the years that I've run this kind of analysis, For the remaining Big 12, it's typically been Oklahoma State, Baylor, TCU, and West Virginia as one kind of key group at the top. And then you have basically everybody else, and then Kansas way in the back. For the Pac-12, Oregon actually outpaced USC for the vast majority of data points. So Oregon is clearly their top dog. But limiting it to conference games probably hurts Stanford because they have that annual date with Notre Dame that helps them immensely.
Well, and look, you have a data point like that. Notre Dame helps them immensely, but you look at everything you sent. Kansas's abject failure as a program over the last decade is a lot further down than say Arizona's or anybody else. So the Big 12 has its own kind of outlier at every step of the way that I know you can't take out, but is certainly a factor.
Oh, it's certainly a factor. If I did a remaining 7 average compared to the remaining Pac-10, you'd be talking 100,000 or more better than you otherwise would be once you average all the games in and do an equal sample size. It definitely impacts things. But when you get an even number of games for the remaining Big 12 and remaining Pac-10 and compare them, even numbers per school, you end up almost identical. Whether you limit the number of Big 12 games or you try and provide a generous estimate for what the games that are on the Pac-12 network might get if they were on ESPNU or FS1, for instance. Either way you slice it, it ends up almost identical. They're very close to each other. And, you really kind of have to go down into the individual TV windows. And at one point it just becomes, all right, they're on late and they're on at noon. Other than that, they're very similar.
One of the things in the chat, and Sam, we appreciate your time and all the graphics of what you did. Basically, it's pretty similar, right? I mean, you're talking about there's not much difference between the two, but if anyone tries to paint that picture, that's the propaganda you're talking about.
Well, that was the title put on after I was done. But, if you're trying to put on the idea that this conference after defections is way ahead of the other one in raw TV ratings, I don't think the data supports that. As far as business interest and what they might get in terms of payouts, there's all kind of estimates being thrown around. I included one of the more credible ones in the article. But, it's really up to the business need because 2 examples of both ESPN and Fox making business moves to protect their interests that the valuation probably would have suggested they would have gone a different way is decade ago, both of them not only didn't splash the Big 12 TV deal when Nebraska left, but they also ESPN came out with the Longhorn Network, which really helped root Texas into the Big 12 for the following decade. And then secondly, Fox, when Syracuse, Pitt, and West Virginia and Notre Dame all left the Big East, Fox was launching Fox Sports 1. They didn't really have much in the way of college basketball content at the time. So they, in my opinion, dramatically overpaid for the 7 Catholic schools in the Big East to break off, go raid Xavier, Creighton, and Butler and form what we now know as the Big East and leave the American. Both of which, their business needs superseded what the estimates would have been for either of those moves.
Sam, thank you, man. Appreciate your time and look forward to the X's and O's talk with you on Fridays during the football season.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much. Sam Bradshaw, Baylor_S11. He's also in the premium section. He and others that put up some of this data and X's and O's stuff is in pictures and videos.
Here's another thing that's interesting, Smokey. He sent a graphic. Get the one I sent you. Can you throw this up real quick? This is now the one I said was like the white one that's like the numbers. If not, there we go, right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you look around and you look at, this is raw data from 2013 to 2019. No championship week, 0 week, Army, Navy, Labor Day week, Thanksgiving week. So those are all prime time. So this is the meat of the season, what networks have average viewers. And if you look around, CBS really runs away with this thing with 1.5 million viewers more overall because they have the SEC. The Big Ten's been on Fox and is far behind, and somehow they're going to negotiate a deal that might be bigger than the SEC. That is what if you were watching the show on Friday, and we've talked about a lot, Craig, of, you might have a lot of these big TV markets, but if I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, which is a market in the middle of the pack, and I know that 350,000 people are going to watch in Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm in, say, San Francisco, and 350,000 people are going to watch there, San Francisco only more valuable to me in the abstract of, like, there could be more people that watched.
Yeah, that's all wishful thinking.
But they're empty seats that could or could not be filled.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sam does a great job there. Man, I just was thinking about that text from that guy talking down to the south. I mentioned the first time that I haven't, been in AC was actually on the West Coast. The last time and the first time I ever saw somebody just openly pooping on the street, that was also in California. That was in San Francisco to be exact. So, yeah, culture that. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's awfully similar, and there's a lot of wishful thinking and stuff just kind of being floated out there about this market and that market. But, yeah, like actually showing proof of, like, look, Stanford and Cal really do carry this number of San Francisco. I don't see any of that out there. It's just like, yeah, no, that's the market they're in. So it's just they happen to be there, not so much that they bring it with them. But I after seeing that as well, I can see where somebody would say, well, see, there's no point in the Pac-12 teams leaving or the blah, blah, blah. And I agree with that, but I maintain after seeing that it's basically the same exact thing. It's like looking in the mirror post USC, UCLA, Oklahoma, and Texas is I still believe the Big 12 is in a stronger position because there's not two teams at the very top right now that may or may not be there in about a couple years, depending on what the Big 10 decides to do. Now, again, I know that threat still looms for the Big 12 as well. The fact that it is so quiet makes me even more alarmist about the fact that there could be something going on. And, like, tomorrow we hear TCU's leaving for, the North or whatever. So I don't think the Big 12 is completely safe from any further damage, but Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal all being rumored or at least appearing to have some strong interest if a Big Ten invite were to come their way, more so than we've heard about any kind of smoke in regards to any Big 12 teams. That, to me, just makes me think the Big 12's in a stronger position. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but, I do think that them not signing that grant of rights here pretty soon or not signing a new TV contract like the Pac-12 will pretty soon, I think it does ultimately probably work out better for them. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but that Oregon-Washington piece is just very shaky to me. And right now the Big 12 doesn't have an equivalent that I'm nearly as worried about, that if they were to bolt, that everything just falls apart.
The counter would be, because does the Big 12 have someone like Washington or Oregon that you would be worried about leaving?
Yeah, and I understand that, but that doesn't really matter.
Just a point.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, but it doesn't really matter. That's just if you want to be, like, feeling better about yourself. Like, oh, well, we have teams that are better regarded. Well, okay, great. And then your conference is still dying, so what does it really matter? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, if it means that the Big 12 doesn't have 2 more or 4 more, whatever, that are good enough to go to the Big 10 because of academics or whatever, but the Big 12's still alive, well, mission accomplished for the conference, and that's what I'm looking at it. I'm not looking at it from an individual, like, Texas Tech point of view or KU point of view. Look, if I was looking at it straight from the Baylor point of view, I'm not even a Baylor fan, like day one Baylor fan, tried and true. And I'm an Oklahoma guy. Like, I'm thrilled that they're going to be in the SEC and that it's going to work out really well for them most likely, and they're going to make tons and tons of money and all that. And I wouldn't blame any other school that goes and jumps and does the same thing from any of these conferences. But looking at it from a good or bad for the Big 12 point of view, yeah, I'd say that's good for the Big 12 ultimately. And then the Pac-12 can die, but be happy that their schools were worth more, even though it led to their death, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to make one more quick point that Sam keeps saying, and I think this is true not just for the Big 12 and Pac-12. This looks like it's true for almost everything across the board. There is one time slot that is absolutely running away with everything, and it is the nighttime on CBS, which is the SEC.
Yes.
So they're the outlier. They're the ones who are really pushing this huge number.
Twice as much as anybody else's number.
Everyone else is more or less the same.
Yeah.
So all of this, like, stuff that's moving around for TV is a little bit fool's gold.
Hey, Fox, you hear about those noon starts or 11 o'clock starts that Oklahoma hated? 3.1 million on average for those particular ones. Hey, I want to say thanks to Kip Linger out of Morgantown. He's the one that sent us the full-size West Virginia helmet. We also got a mini helmet in the mail over the weekend that are on our set. It's on our set. Thank you very much. We are thrilled to be part of the Big 12. We fit in better with the fans here than the ACC, which is too snooty with its elitist attitude. You hear that a lot But thank you, Kip. We appreciate that. Not saying he represents all of West Virginia fan base, but here's a guy that he's a grad and has a Bachelor of Science in Pharmacy back in 1993.
Go Ears.
Yep. All right, one note, break, and then Bill Russell. This summarizes Bill Russell. This is from the great Bob Ryan. In his final 14 years as a basketball player, Bill Russell's teams had 21 winner-take-all contests, 9 NCAA tournament games, an Olympic gold medal game, 10 Game 7s in the NBA, and 1 Game 5 that decided a series. You know how many of the 21 he won? Every damn one of them. Now, the Celtics had Havlicek and much more as well, but Bill Russell, the greatest I can ever remember when it comes to winning as a team, as a leader, and his legacy off the court and what he dealt with off the court and what he fought for off the court. He made this comment, I don't have the quote. His mom said, "You will never be the one that starts a fight, but if somebody else starts one with you, you will be the one that needs to end it." And one time she took him, some guys were being a bully to him. She took him around the corner, found these 5 guys and said, "You're going to fight every single one of them because it's protecting who you are and what you represent." He lost 3 of the 5 fights. His mother's standing right there. This is part of a story. It's a great story. He won 2 of the 5, lost 3 of the 5, but he did send and make a point about he was not going to be bullied at any time during his life. The arguments about 1963 or 1959 San Francisco, he won a national championship twice, and he won 11 NBA championships and also an Olympic gold medal. And
he didn't even hop from team to team
and
to
guess what? Yeah.
buddy up and
eventually coached his
super
own
team this thing up.
Yeah.
But he's just on, and the Celtics were a super team. Yeah, because Bill Russell. Because a big part of it was Bill Russell. And yeah, I used to be that young and dumb guy who was, there's no way somebody from back then could compete with the guys that he was smash on 99.9% of today's NBA. And that's not even taken away from the guys. That's just propping up Bill Russell. That's not taken away from today's NBA. They're great players, great athletes, a lot of stuff that they can do. It's just wild. Like Steph Curry. If you imagine somebody shooting like Steph Curry back in Bill Russell's day, people would have lost their minds. Yeah. But, it's just a different.
There were some, but they just didn't shoot threes.
Yeah, they didn't shoot. It was a different era, different rules, different everything. And it's just kind of apples and oranges, I think, to compare. The only thing that's really similar is just the hoop and you shoot the ball into it. Yeah. But a lot of it, the rest of it's entirely different.
Yeah. Do you think Bill Russell saw a protein shake before age 55?
No,
when a doctor said, "Hey, you probably need to get a little protein," and you do this.
Training, the facilities, the
private
nutrition,
jets. Come on. All of the ways that guys are pampered these days alone, just as far as taking care of their bodies, is so wildly different from guys back then that it's just not a great comparison to make.
He also received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, in his fight for what he dealt with as a young black kid growing up in California, and then eventually, I believe it was in Mississippi as well, when he went to a basketball camp that was integrated.
I would also probably given it to him for what he probably had to put up with in Boston.
No, the stories about the fan base and how he was treated in Boston will make your hair on the back of your neck, if you have any, come right up to it. When we come back, we're going to check in with Oxnard, California Cowboys training camp with David Harmon, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. I have another story that I received from Rob Maxey, Dr. Maxey at idealmri.com. He said a lady needed a lumbar spine MRI last week, in fact. Her insurance had a deductible of $6,000. The hospital wanted to charge her for over $2,000 for the MRI. And because her deductible was so high, she would have to pay all $2,000. She called us at Ideal MRI, wanted to pay $497 and save $1,500. Get this, Smokey. We have a deal with her insurance, and she only paid $230 out of pocket, saved her $1,800. She got her scan the next day with results given to her and her doctor immediately. That is what I've been telling you about idealmri.com, their location in Waco in the Central Texas marketplace. $6,000 deductible, and sometimes you have to have a high deductible. Maybe you do, I do, because you don't want to have to get hit with the big one. She saved $1,500, an MRI for $230 that was going to be $2,000. idealmri.com.
Cars priced right both day and night. trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. And with your car in Texas, cars that zoom with lots of room. And with your car in Texas, count on us, a dealer to trust. And with your car in Waco, Texas.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com. Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive. It's a staple of the Waco economy. And you're about to approach this time of the year where you have the holidays, special gifts. It's not that you don't have that every single day. What are some of the things you have coming up?
We kind of call ourselves the Wedding Ring Store. We do all of our own custom work in-house. I've got 2 expert jewelers on staff every day. We can make anything from scratch. We kind of pride ourselves, probably 9 out of 10 every engagement ring we do is actually made custom to what the customer wants.
People look at that, oh my God, I can't afford it. I can't afford something like that. You've shown me examples that you could fit pretty much any budget.
It doesn't cost any more to custom make something. You still have gold, you still have diamonds, and you still have labor. Best thing about a custom piece is if you have any old jewelry or heirloom jewelry or something passed down from a grandma or somebody, we can take that jewelry and use it towards your wedding ring for the sentimental value, and then you've got the product, and then it's just a little bit of labor and a little bit of design on your part of what you actually want.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
First and goal. He's found 5 different targets. He's going to hand it off. It's Pollard, and he's across for the Dallas touchdown.
It's time for our weekly segment with David Hellman of FoxSports.com.
David Hellman, Oxnard, California, Fox Sports with us on 365 Sports. David, thank you for your time. So there was a little bit of a dark cloud today, I guess, during some of the workouts with James Washington. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's kind of ironic. Like, we went into this season thinking, ooh, the receiver situation doesn't look very good, and ooh, the offensive tackle situation doesn't look very good. And first day in pads, and there's already a lot of questions about injured his foot in practice. The final word isn't out on that, but it looks like something that's going to cause him to miss some time. And then rookie tackle Matt Waletzko might need surgery on the shoulder issue he's dealing with. So, yeah, took all of about 3 days for those problems to rear their head.
David, does this now force the Cowboys' hand to bring in a veteran wide receiver?
You would think. I mean, like, yeah, that's the logical response, I guess. But again, we'll see. we'll see exactly how severe this injury is. I don't really want to speculate as of yet before we hear more. But, I mean, I would imagine James Washington is going to miss several weeks, if not more. And, yeah, I mean, there's just so little in the way of proven ability on this receiver corps. You would think this would force their hand, but honestly, I would have argued that their hand was forced before this, and they disagreed with me. So I think the Cowboys can be pretty stubborn about things like this when everybody's screaming at them to do something and they don't want to. But, yeah, if I were them, I would probably be on the phone.
So, David, a little bit of a lay of the land when we talked to you last week. I mean, nothing had really started just yet. So when did it start to feel like training camp had really began?
For me, when I got out of the car in Ventura and it was 68 degrees, that's when it felt like training camp for me. Yeah, I mean, it's the best thing about coming here. It's why the Cowboys do it. It's been kind of weird just because, you know, they got here a week ago and today was the first day in pads. Obviously, the NFL is trying to do a lot to protect its players compared to the old days. So the ramp up was pretty surreal just to go through almost a week of unpadded work before the real practices started. For me, it felt like it was here a week ago when it stopped being 100 degrees. But I think now that the pads are on, I think we're really easing into the reality of camp.
So, on roster options of moving up, I mean, Noah Brown, I know people have said has had a strong camp, but again, he's never really been more than a fourth or fifth wide receiver. Semi Fehoko, already expecting a lot out of Jalen Tolbert as they wait. And TJ Vasher, is that someone that people will now have to watch a little bit more, or is that more of he's going to make the team as a special teams player?
It's fun to see. Actually, I think that's what works against TJ Vasher is I don't know what you do with him on special teams. Like, he's probably not going to be your return guy, and he's 6'6" and weighs like less than I do. Like, he's like the lankiest receiver I've ever seen. So I don't know what role he's filling on special teams, which I'm not trying to hate on the guy. He obviously made that incredible circus catch, but if you don't have special teams value, it's very hard to be a down the depth chart type of guy. So that's something to watch with him. But to kind of go back to your point, I mean, that's the issue here is like Michael Gallup's going to miss a few games probably. You got CeeDee Lamb, obviously. You were already asking Jalen Tolbert to start for the time being, and now he's like your number two because every other receiver – Noah Brown's great. I think his story is so cool to last in the NFL for as long as he has as a 7th-round pick. But when he's gotten his opportunities under the bright lights, it hasn't typically gone very well. You kind of know what you have in him. And then everybody else, you're asking on, Semi Fehoko and all these all these rookies, undrafted guys. You're asking guys who have never played in the NFL to play a meaningful role. I just don't think it's realistic. And so, again, we have to wait and see how long James Washington is expected to be out. But if he's going to miss regular season time and they're not looking for veteran help, I think they're nuts.
David, one of the notes, the NFL note about Deshaun Watson, the suspension of 6 games, whether it's added to that, whether what Goodell does or not remains to be seen. But what was the reaction of that suspension, if at all, at Cowboys training camp based on what Zeke dealt with just a handful of years ago?
I have to be fully transparent. I was down in LA today doing things for Fox Sports. I actually wasn't at practice. I'll be there tomorrow. I don't know if any players were asked about it. The irony is that Zeke's issues were in 2017. The list of guys that were even here for that at this point is not long.
Mm-hmm.
That's just life. That's just life in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, it obviously, if you're a Cowboy fan who remembers that, it's bizarre. I've read the judge's briefing on why she made the decision she did. Personally, I don't think it makes any sense. I think it's insane to use Zeke Elliott's precedent for a case like this that is completely dissimilar. I mean, you're talking about dozens of people's words against Deshaun Watson, not just one, as was in the case with Zeke. You've got the fact where Zeke Elliott wasn't even in the NFL when his incident happened and was punished for it anyway. Not only was Deshaun Watson in the NFL, but there's evidence that suggests that the Houston Texans helped him do the stuff that he was doing. They're not even in the same planet. And to to suggest that those are worthy of the same discipline, I think it's completely insane, and I'm sure a lot of Cowboy fans agree with me about that.
David, thank you very much. FoxSports.com, David Hellman covers the Cowboys, and again on the national show earlier today, and giving us his feedback and insight from Oxnard, California. Got a note here. Austin Novosad, the quarterback at Dripping Springs High School, who committed to Baylor, I believe, at the end of last year's high school season, is going to make an announcement tonight at 7:30. Either he will recommit or stay with his original commitment, which is Baylor, or he will announce perhaps that he's changing his mind.
Yeah, and I'm a little 50-50 on my excitement level for this because, for one, I don't think I'm not going to start the party of celebrating recommits because that's just – there's no such thing. A recommit's not a – I don't believe that that's a thing. So you're committed or you're not. And you're going to flip or you're not, and we'll figure that out tonight. I know that Grayson Greenhafer, probably more than anybody, has got to be excited just to have some finality to this, and I'm sure the coaches are right up there near the top of that list as well, and I'm sure they probably already know kind of what's what in regards to that. But, yeah, I mean, it's a big decision because if Baylor holds on to him, then they've got a really great player who's a top 50, I believe, type player, definitely a high four-star guy, and a leader of the class. And they've got a really good class. It's 20-plus deep right now. So that would be major to have that all kind of concrete and not have to worry about that any longer when A&M and Ohio State and a couple of others have been nibbling here as of late. Well, we know Ohio State got a quarterback commit over the weekend. You would think that eliminates them. I don't know about the rest of the candidates, but you would think that takes the Buckeyes out of the equation. But we'll see. And, if he flips, then that'll really be the interesting thing because – then that's complete uncertainty as far as who your quarterback's going to be because they haven't been on anybody else. They've been only on Austin Novosad. So it's him or bust. And so tonight they're either going to just get that confirmation and thankfully be done with the roller coaster, which I understand he's gotten a lot of attention over the last few months. And, hey, if I was 17, 18 and Ohio State came calling me, especially in the NIL era, and regardless of the NIL era, I'd listen. Like, I'd have to. But yeah, it'll be good to have some confirmation on what's what later on tonight.
Yeah, tomorrow when we know the news and all that, I've got an article that's kind of relevant. But Christian McCollum, Smokey, we've had him on the show, Notre Dame guy, and he wrote an article on their site about Austin Novosad's visit to Notre Dame, and Austin's comments could not have been more like, "Well, it was really cool to come here." It was very vanilla. And so
Grayson has been very confident for this entire run that he's going to be a Bear, that he's going to stick with Baylor, even when Notre Dame came calling, and before them it was Ohio State, and it was A&M. All three of those schools in the last, 5 weeks have all been, all of a sudden in the sweepstakes, and that's what's caused all the uncertainty.
It will put A&M in a pickle if he chooses Baylor.
Well, and his parents went there.
Yeah, because they already lost Eli Holstein. This would be another guy that they lost out on. Brock Glenn's out of the water, so if you want to sign somebody in 2023 that has a certain star ranking, those guys are, they're not just out there.
Notre Dame came more than nibbling. Ohio State more than nibbling. He visited them. A&M, of course, as Craig said, his parents went there. They also have been entertaining Malachi Nelson, who's the USC high-level, 5-star ranking quarterback, and you wonder if that was because they felt like the writing was on the wall. But that will happen tonight at 7:30, Sikkim365.com. Grayson will be all over it. Tomorrow, there's the Bearcast that's recorded. They'll be able to discuss, Craig and Grayson tomorrow, all of that went into it. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Make this a summer sales event is happening now at Allen Samuels on the new 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Star. With special values up to $7,000 or get $1,500 bonus cash and 2.9% for 72 months. Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. This legendary, award-winning truck gives you that first-class feel. Allen Samuels in Waco, the place to shop for Ram trucks. First responders get $500 extra cash.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon wrap filet. And of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, behind the bank.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 Pac-12 worries, or worries for the Pac-12. I'll do a counteract to this. I'm not trying to pile on, but I'm a rusticated from the South, so it might take me a little bit. Number 5, the TV contract negotiations will probably drag now into 2023. This is not what they wanted, because it's going to create further, restlessness, I would think.
Anxiety
and what's going to happen. And, it gives everybody who might be looking over there just a chance to, hey, look, if I'm Brett Yormark and, say Colorado calls me and says, hey, we just want to have an open dialogue. Yeah, we've got plenty of time. So let's just work this out and see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This might actually be a blessing for them that it's going to drag into 2023. Like, if there was a timeline of like, hey, you have to have something signed by October 1st, I think they are royally screwed.
Yeah.
But the fact that it could drag a few more months, I think only bodes well for them. I mean, for starters, we're starting off at a place that doesn't appear to be all that great. Mm-hmm. So it can't really go down. In theory, it could definitely go up, though. So, yeah, they have some time to try to bump that up however best they can figure out how to do so. Maybe it's by, going and grabbing SMU. Maybe it's by going and grabbing San Diego State and SMU. Or maybe it's going and trying to poach the Big 12. That's one thing I didn't hear from the Pac-12, person, whoever earlier was, oh, well, he's just saying what he has to say. Yeah, in one side of his mouth, in the same press conference, he's talking about complaints that the Big 12 is looking to poach their teams, and then saying that they are open for business out the other side of his mouth, and they are open to talking to teams. So, it just doesn't make any sense. You said a whole lot of just talking out of both sides of your mouth and was Big 12 focused, and that's why I criticized his talk on Friday the way that I did. I thought it was kind of silly, but I understand where he was coming from. But yeah, I think this might actually be a benefit versus the negative that it certainly appears to be on the surface.
Number 4, the Big Ten has no fear. I think Kevin Warren kind of made that clear. Everything that the Big Ten was politically balancing last year has now kind of been worked out in their mind, and they can go full speed ahead. So at whatever point the Big Ten decides to get re-involved in this, they're going to tell the Pac-12. They've already shown that they're not. So whatever that happens, they're just kind of at the mercy of, now the Big Ten has more information at the, in the palm of their hands, and they can react how they want to, where the Pac-12 just has to sit there and wait.
Yeah.
There's no repercussion. They can't push anything back anymore. There was a time where there could have been some pushback. There's not anymore. What can you do?
Yeah, I just, again, going back to George Kliavkoff's comments and why I said what I said earlier, I understand from the Pac-12 fan point of view why he had to say what he had to say, but he had nothing to say about the guy leading the conference that basically looped them into a fake alliance to get what he wanted ultimately, which was the playoff on his terms as best as they could navigate that at the expense of the ACC and the Pac-12, who all thought that they were under this safe little umbrella together when it turns out, no, you're just somebody I had to step over real quick to get what I ultimately wanted. So he did that, then went and stole their 2 biggest brands out of their biggest market, and left them with no one in L.A., and then turned around and threatened further expansion on media days, not directly situated right at the Pac-12, but that's where all of the rumors are, which means that, in the middle of the night, Kevin Warren could swoop in and go grab TCU and Texas Tech or something, and it wouldn't shock anybody. It wouldn't shock me, at least at this point, because I'm open for any idea. But basically, people feel like that was directed towards, Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford. So all of that, the fake alliance, stealing the LA schools, and then leaving it open, and maybe whenever he wants to, because he's not on a timeline, going and killing the conference, and yet you had nothing to say about that dude? You had nothing to say, but you had a whole bunch to say about the dude whose first day was today, officially. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Smoke dragon.
But no, that's just so silly. Give me a break. I understand, again, where he's coming from, but when you add all those things up together, I don't care where he's coming from. That was lame as hell to say what he said and to not say what he didn't say. So, yeah. But yeah, the Big Ten's got everything that they want and more on their side, and they can do whatever they want whenever they want to, basically.
Number 3, recruiting cycles in the LA market. I would think that this is maybe not so far as an administrative issue as coaches are already trying to deal with this, in that you're recruiting kids for 2024, 2023, 2024. Well, anybody you recruit from now on that is in the LA market and you tell them that you're going to play games there, that's only true if you're in the Big Ten or you're from another conference that has USC and you say on your schedule, and that game might get bought out when the new schedules get done. So you don't even know. So the only promise you can make is if you're going to be in the Big Ten or USC or UCLA, that's the only promise you can make about playing in LA and being involved in the LA market. Otherwise, the Pac-12 is out of that business, and you can't sell to recruits until you know.
Unless they decide to play the championship game.
No. George Kliavkoff, fellows, said during his press conference that they are going to play games in LA. Yeah. And I don't know how he exactly phrased that, but I do know for a fact that he said something along the lines of them playing and figuring out ways to play games in LA.
Neutral site games like they do at AT&T. SoFi is going to be there, but as far as but those are all one-offs,
right?
And those it's not going to be regular. You're not going to be, if USC snubs you, one of the things usually you could use if you were Oregon, be like, you know what, come play against them, help us beat them. Well, as long as Oregon's not in the same league with them, you can't use that either.
Yeah,
so,
you're not going to have weekly games at the Rose Bowl. I get that. Yeah. But, you are going to try and, at least he says, you're going to try and carve out some LA action as best you can. But, yeah, you're not going to be able to do that every week. You might not be able to do that every month somehow because you're not going to have those teams. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I think that there is still something to be said for if you're a West Coast dude and you want to stay closer to the West Coast and maybe you entertain, one of those other Pac-12 schools that would have been USC or UCLA, just so you simply stay closer, as close as you can to home. So all of a sudden, maybe Cal looks better if you can get in there, or Oregon looks better if you can, go there. But yeah, that's a massive void that they suddenly have, and I'm very curious to see. kind of like with Oklahoma and Texas, how does we saw it with A&M when they shifted over to the SEC, how that kind of changed some things. How does that change with OU and Texas moving? And, how does L.A. change with USC and UCLA going to the Midwest, whatever?
Not that it wasn't always national recruiting out of California, not that it always national recruiting out of California, but I think what's happening in Texas in the last decade since A&M left and go to the SEC, and now will probably happen in California more, is because now you've got coast-to-coast conferences and all that. What happened in Florida forever is because you had, your three big teams were in different conferences, so everybody was kind of coming in there anyway. And so now it's kind of whatever. Well, this is the conference of this state. That's over. That whole idea is out the window. So then it makes it even more national than it already was.
Yeah.
Like it whatever guardrails you had of saying, like, this is a Pac-12 state in California, this is a Pac-12 area. Well, that's over.
Yeah.
So now, look, if you don't care about that, then, every conference is in the water. All right. Number 2, other leagues' TV contracts are starting soon. So you've got to kind of compete against this. And the less attractive you seem over time, that's why I think the TV negotiations dragging out might be a detriment, although, Craig, you made a great point about it going on. Well, say somebody's able to ratchet up theirs earlier on before yours is done, then, again, there's not infinite. This isn't this. The Saudi royal family isn't paying for college football. There's not infinite money. There's a crap load of money, but the money's going to start drying up eventually, and you're going to have to start getting creative about who you are.
Yeah, you are. And the Big 12's got a couple years to figure that out. Pac-12's got, they're figuring that out right now. So, how you want to look at that as a strength or a weakness or whatever. I guess it's a strength that they get it first, but how much is considered for those still to come will be very interesting to see.
Yeah. And number 1, impatience. This is the thing that would probably get over everything, is if anything drags or people start getting impatient, then you start maybe being disloyal and you're not as together, and you're like, look, we just want to know where we're going to be for the next decade, and we can't sit around and wait. We have offers. We're going.
I think Kliavkov's probably the most patient man in the world right now, but those around him, not so much. Because, I don't want to be at the mercy of Oregon and Washington's Big Ten dream, or Stanford and Cal for that matter, for the next several months until something's going to have to give for some of those involved. And then again, some of those will want something to give, and yet they're not powerful enough to really demand that. So, it's going to be a lot of holding on tight and just fingers crossed and hopes and prayers for some schools. And if everybody can just remain patient, if that's possible, then they can navigate this as best they can. But you wouldn't be surprised, I don't think anybody would, if somebody started getting some cold feet.
All right, boy, a lot today, and we just now wrap it up. Thank you for staying a little bit late with us today. Those of you on the chat room, the text line, our sponsors, including TFNB, Your Bank for Life is our title sponsor of the YouTube 365 Sports Channel. Levi, Faith, Emery, Jack, and Garrett behind the scenes, but wow, where would we be without them? Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. Good night. Sick 'em. 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Austin Novosad's decision, either confirming his commitment or flipping, 7:30 tonight.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.